the levels of water, the water column, right? From the top to that mid-depth to the bottom. It's an amazing bait at covering those three zones, depending on how we rig it. It's a pretty unique bait, because if you look at a lot of other bait categories, you don't have that versatility there, right? You know, a top water stays on the top, a crankbait dives to 10 foot, you know, a heavy jig drags the bottom. But this soft jerk bait, depending on how we rig it, is very easy to modify on the fly and to change like that with terminal tackle. Just little tiny trinkets and tidbits that we're going to add to this thing to make it change the zones from top to bottom. And when I'm in search mode, that's my mindset. Always is my mindset is what's the level of the fish, right? What's the level of the fish? And we're going to figure out what zone they're in. Are they feeding at the top of the water column, right? Subsurface and surface? Are they suspended, feeding and living in the middle of the water column? Or are they on the bottom, toward the bottom, feeding on the bottom? And we're going to be able, with this bait, to cover all these zones. So let's start with the top. And this is the way that most of you guys know how to fish a soft fluke jerkbait, is what I call that top zone, which is surface and subsurface, okay? And I want to show you a couple rigging methods here to help with that, okay? So let's start with the hook. And a lot of these baits, whatever brand you throw, a lot of these baits are 4 to 6 inches long, right? 4 to 6 inches long. They got a semi-thick body, and they all end in a...
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Bass University Live, a very special Saturday morning edition here in the frozen tundra. It's 5 degrees outside my house. It's freezing cold. Everything's frozen. I know if you live in where I live or anywhere north of where I live, man, even south of here, it's froze up solid. So it's a great time to be indoors and talking fishing. And you know, we just have an absolutely amazing show. I'm really excited about today that we're gonna be talking about some really cool stuff with some really cool guests. And right here, sitting next to me, a lot of you may recognize him, is elite angler Adrian Avena. Adrian, appreciate you being here, man.
Man, I'm glad to be here and inside in the heat like you. I mean, shoot, it's been probably 2 weeks of some of the most brutal weather we've had up here in New Jersey in a while. So it's nice to be here in the studio.
Are you striper guiding this time of year?
Yeah, unfortunately not. We had to pull our boat, I guess, about a week ago or so. Everything's locked in ice, man. I mean,
really?
It's I mean, a lot of damage is being done to a lot of marinas down there in Cape May and just on the Jersey coast. And typically, I try to run my charters through January, but unfortunately this year I wasn't able to.
I got you. Can you hear his audio okay?
Yeah.
BTC? Well, yeah, I saw some photos down there at Cape May. For those of you that don't know, Adrian runs striper charters during the off season, and it's been so blistering cold that that the ice, the bay is icing up, the ocean's icing up, and I guess, Adrian, you got your boat out this year. So well, that's unfortunate, but it looks like we're gonna have 55-degree weather next week, so you'll be able to put it back in.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I'm actually gonna spoil myself a little bit. We're gonna head down to Florida actually tomorrow.
Oh, yeah?
And I got to pick up my girlfriend from the airport here in a little while after this show, and yeah, we're gonna go down there and spend about a week or so and just enjoy it. You know, we need a little bit of downtime. It's been an off season for me that's been pretty busy. So I'm looking to relax for about a week before the season gets rolling.
Well, good for you. Well, I'll be going down to Florida real soon for the Bassmaster Open, but for those of you that are watching here on YouTube, you're watching on Facebook, we want to invite you guys to come over and try Bass University. Subscribe at bassu.tv. It's free, 10 days free. Just check it out. But what you'll get by subscribing is you'll be able to access the instant message board. You'll be able to ask me and Adrian and all of our other guests that we have today questions about fishing, whatever it may be. And we're giving away lots and lots of prizes. This is our WeGo show. WeGo Jump Starters, the official starter of the Bass University. We're going to be giving away the WeGo 66
a good one
today.
That's a good one.
That's the one. That's the industrial one, right? When you're like us, you're competing in tournaments. That's the one that we like to use because it's going to jump. It's going to jump our boats. Heck, it can jump your striper boat. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think here in a little while we actually plan on doing a little shoot. I also have a partnership with WeGo, and man, it's really just changed my mindset on the water. I mean, I'm always knowing that just in case anything were to happen, that situation, I always have that in my compartment. And so I mean,
it's like security, right?
Yeah.
It takes that one thing that you normally worry about and takes it out of the picture,
out of the equation,
right? Yeah. And that's not being able to start your outboard, because when you catch as many fish as Adrian does, he's operating his live wells all day, not having to move. And a lot of times what that does is that hits your outboard. And man, you got all that. You got that 20 and 30 pound bag in the live well, and you can't you can't start the outboard. That's where WeGo comes in. These guys, this one weighs 1.5 pounds. That one weighs just slightly more. They fit anywhere in your bass boat. They don't take up any space, and they will jump your outboard. Whether you're a tournament guy, whether you're a weekend angler trying to get your family home safe, it's an amazing product that really everybody needs to have in their boat. But this is the WeGo show. How are you going to win this stuff? We have trivia questions that we're going to be asking. So whoever gets those questions right, going to win some of these prizes. Best questions. Whoever asks the best, most interesting questions, or the questions BTC flags as being ridiculous questions, we're gonna give prizes away to you guys too. Just keep whatever you want to talk about. We're going to be talking about some great topics today. And, ask questions about those things. And we're going to be talking about the fish head spin. We're going to be Adrian is here today to talk about basically basics, things, consistent strategies to catch fish wherever you are in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I find myself over the last 5 or 6 years, really getting into tournament fishing. Now, you want to jump into it? You're going to wait a little bit.
Just give them a little preview.
Little teaser, right?
Little teaser.
Prior to all these big tournaments I go to, a lot of them are lakes that I've never been to. And the biggest struggle is trying to figure out a place that you've never seen before. So what do? You do tournament research. You go online, you search things, you search the patterns that typically prevail at that body of water. So with that, you tend to spend a lot of money online buying a bunch of tackle that you've maybe never used before.
I've never personally done that.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tell you guys that, there's always different ways to catch them, and there's always ways to catch them that you're comfortable with. So I'm going to jump into that here in a little while.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to talking about that because, yes, I have done that. Every single tournament, I spend $1,000 worth and get all this gear that I can never seem to figure out how to make it work, and I have to go back to what got me there in the first place. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about that. So guys, if you're watching again on Facebook, YouTube, come over, subscribe at bassu.tv. It's 10 days free right now. If you subscribe annually, it's 2 months free. And with that, you're going to have access to the instant messaging board. But here's what you get. Bass University, we launch 2 new pieces of educational content every single week that talks to you about the fishing that's going on in the country right now. And it's taught to you by guys like Adrian Avena and all the great anglers in the world. And they're teaching about the things that they're really, really good at. And that's what you get every single week. In addition to that, we have great benefits. We have great discounts on WeGo products, on things like Poptical sunglasses, the Rapala VIP program where you get 30 to 40% off Rapala, Terminator, VMC, Storm, all the Rapala brands. That's all available only to our subscribers at Bassu TV. So it pays for itself. What's it turned out to be, Brian? $299 a week.
$288.
$288 a week.
$288.
$280, less than a crankbait, You get the best education in fishing that will truly help you raise your bass fishing IQ. That's what the Bass University is all about. And so today we're going to be talking with Adrian. We're going to be talking about Adrian's basics, and we've got a really, really great guest that's coming on. That's a friend of mine that I had an opportunity to travel with a little bit last year. Is Rob Jordan, and he is the future FLW Rookie of the Year.
Facts.
He's embarking on a big journey this year, taking on the FLW Tour events, and he is a guide on Lake Lanier, which is the spotted bass capital of the East. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is the underspin, the fish head spin. It's a tremendous tool in cold water applications around herring lakes, and it's a really unique tool that I think everybody's going to be able to gain something from today. So we definitely want to talk about that. And you've got a lot of experience with that tool.
Yeah, I've earlier in my career fishing the FLW Tour, there was a few events that we went to, a couple on Hartwell, one on Smith. I fished the Barstow Cup on Lanier, and all of those events, the fish head spin was a factor for me. I mean, I won a lot of money on it, and it's something I'm definitely confident in, and it's something that I feel like every angler needs to have in their tackle box.
And it's a confusing lure. It was to me when I first got started fishing it, and I have limited experience with it. So for me, this is amazing. This is a great opportunity for me to learn a little bit more about this great technique, and I look forward to talking with you and Rob about that. And Rob's going to be coming on here in just a little while. So get your questions together about fishing Lake Lanier, spotted bass, and the fish head spin. So that's going to be going on. So we want to once again welcome everybody that's watching this morning. And I want to invite everybody again to come over and subscribe to Bass University TV. I also want to take a minute right now for those of you that are going to be seeing the Bass University around the country. We really look forward to coming to your town. We're going to be in some great places, and it starts this weekend. This upcoming weekend, we're going to be at Kokomo, Indiana for our kickoff Bass University event. Tickets are still available at thebassuniversity.com. We've got a great lineup there. We got Z. Mark Zone is back with the Bass University this year. We're looking forward to having Z again. Always entertaining and informative. Ike is going to be there at Kokomo, as well as Scott Suggs, the FLW champ, JC, John Cruz, Bill Lowen, the most consistent angler in fishing, and Cliff Crotchet, the Cajun baby, will be there as well, and always entertaining, especially when he brings that crazy accent up north. People love it. We're also going to be in the Cincinnati area. Ott Defoe, man, what an amazing angler at such a young age, accomplishing so much. Mike McClellan, I think Mike's won 150 tournaments at this point. He just keeps winning one every year. Of course, it helps that there's always tournaments out there, Table Rock or where he lives.
Home Lake.
Yeah, it's Home Lake. He's got a little bit of an edge there. But Mike is a talented angler all over the country. He'll be there. Jamie Hartman, who should have won Rookie of the Year this year, came in second, had a great year. Skeet Reese is going to be the first year we have Skeet with us this year.
Really?
Which is exciting for us at the Bass University. Looking forward to being taught by Skeet and the Angler of the Year, Brandon Polnick, the prodigy. What an amazing run he's having. I still cannot believe he stopped fishing to turn his GoPro on during the Angler of the Year race.
During a fish catch.
Thinking. What's that, BTZ?
Why, he had a fish on the line.
While he had a fish on the line.
Oh, by the way, I just want to let you guys know, I'm Brian, and that's Eric.
We're here too.
Are your mics on?
They are.
Sorry about that, guys. That's Eric the intern at BTC making it all happen. And we started on time today, guys. Yay! Appreciate you guys being here with us.
I still can't believe it happened.
It was well done. It was well done.
Happened.
Getting it done.
Thanks, Mark Jeffries.
Yes.
And everybody else involved.
Yes.
And
Thank
Jason.
you, Mark. We're getting it all figured out. Eric.
I'm back.
Happy to have you here.
I know. I'm happy to be back, man, for sure.
You were
Been a
fishing
I was,
in
yeah.
sub-zero
I went
temperatures.
fishing this week during the bomb cyclone.
The bomb cyclone.
Caught wild brown trout, too. It was awesome.
catching going north from where we're at, believe it or not, finding water that you could fish.
Yeah, it's normally a 2.5 hour drive to get back here, and it took me, I think, 5.5 hours. So I worked for him, but first fish of 2018, wild brown, can't complain.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh,
What
yeah.
in the heck were you wearing? Like electrical warming
Oh
boots?
my god,
Or?
4 layers of pants, every article of clothing I had, it was a nightmare. Like a full face mask that you wear when you're riding down the Delaware with Mike and he's breaking in his new boat. It's like 40 degrees out. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you made it in. And,
I'm glad to be here.
And BTC, I hear there's big news. I hear you got a new ride.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I got a little shit kicker for South Jersey.
Yeah.
Tin boat. I got big things coming, so I'm not going to let too much out of it. It's an announcement of an announcement, but there's big things coming.
Now I don't have to hear every weekend, yo, when you bring your boat down.
Yeah.
Yo, bring your boat down.
I
Hey, get
wait
that
for
tracker.
no man anymore. F y'all.
We're looking forward to having you out on the water with us.
Yeah, and there's actually a little gathering going on tomorrow at an undisclosed location here in South Jersey.
What?
Yeah.
There's no open water in South Jersey.
No, but we're going to drill holes.
Count me out.
I saw that when I came here the other day out on Lake X. There was some hole drillers
Yeah.
out there on the lake.
Yeah, there's going to be some barbecuing and bonfires and beverages and trash talking.
Yeah.
Maybe even a fish catch.
You guys bring beverages?
Yeah, might.
A
little hot toddy.
Hey guys, well thanks for being here. Thanks for getting us up and running. Apologize for missing you guys up front.
That's
But
all
the I don't get to host. I'm usually the co-host here, so I'm taking on new tasks
I know, but
here this morning. But in Tulsa, we're going to be again this year, and man, we are lighting it up. Guys in Tulsa, you better get your ticket. They are flying out the ticket window like no other. And we're going to have there Jordan Lee, the classic champ, just cool as could be. Boom Boom's going to be there with his new swim bait and his frog hair, which you got to come and check out. And James Elam, Jason Christie, just setting it on fire, local guy. John Cruz is going to be there as well as Jeff Creek's going to be with the Bass University this year in Tulsa. So great lineup. And we're going to be in Gadsden, Alabama for the first time this year. And we have Amart is going to be there, who is always fascinating to dive into his mind of fishing. And Justin Lucas will be there. Matt Herron, who is a local boy down there. Looking forward to, hearing him talk about the local bodies of water and his experience there. But we got Chris Aldane. I'll be speaking, as well as, man, one of the greatest anglers, got to be in the conversation, one of the greatest anglers of all time, Mark Davis, will be with us in Alabama this year. So,
I feel like Aaron would have been a great substitute for Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. They both run and just say some silly stuff.
Well, I'm not
You
going to draw
agree.
that parallel. I'll leave that one to you. But hey, we're glad to have him, and it's he thinks about fishing, and if you ever talked with Aaron, he thinks about fishing just like Forrest Gump might think about, like in a way that nobody else would thinks about it, and that gets him great success. I mean, he's one of the greatest anglers. He's in that conversation
Outside the box thinking.
But I think I'm going to be punished for having any part in that conversation. But we're glad to have you, Amart, and it's going to be a great Bass University year. Go to thebassuniversity.com, get your tickets. Ticket windows open right now. So with all that being said, do we take care of all our business? Yes. All right, guys, we're going to be talking fishing, and one of the things that we get, the questions we get all around the country are, how can I be more consistent? How can I get confident on a new body of water? These are the questions that we get all over the country. So if you have questions, get on the IM board. Let us know what your questions are. But we're going to be talking a little bit today about let Adrian really showcase what he does on a new body of water, and when things aren't working, when you got to get back to basics. So let's dive right into it, Adrian. I mean, we talked to you brought it up when we first started. You buy $1,000 worth of lures. You have these crankbaits that dive 30 feet deep, and for whatever reason you get there, and all those things that were supposed to be working aren't working. What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, And that's just where, over the last 5 or 6 years tournament fishing, I've really started to realize some of the important things that I've done, and some of the things that I may have forgot about. A lot of times you think instantly whenever you jump in the front of the boat. Now, say if you're a professional angler, all of a sudden you forget about your fundamentals. You forget about your shaky heads. You forget about your wacky worms. You forget about all them baits you throw around the house. And you try to do everything you're supposed to do. And a lot of times, that gets you into trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ahead and just give you some tips that I've learned over the last few years that's allowed me to almost pull an audible, whether it be in practice or throughout the course of the tournament, that allowed me to cash checks and catch more fish. And so pretty much for me, you kind of touched base on it a little bit, but prior to each tournament, a lot of these places, me being a northern angler, I didn't have the opportunity to go and visit in the pre-practice or to fish. So for me, a lot of times I'm seeing these bodies of water for the first time. And I mean, they're like oceans. A lot of people, when we travel and we go to these lakes, we live here in South Jersey. We don't have many big ponds. And that's probably the hardest thing and hardest adjustment whenever you're an angler in our area to go elsewhere throughout the country to try to really dissect that place, because
a lot of our ponds are small.
Yeah,
and you can fish the whole thing in a day.
And I mean, it's the truth whenever somebody tells you that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times the hardest thing to do is to really try to break that water down in places where you're putting yourself in productive areas. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, for me, the one thing that I've learned is, instead of you can go on your retailer. For me, it's Tackle Direct. You can go on Tackle Direct and order a bunch of stuff and do your tournament research, and say if it's a TVA lake or TVA river system and you're supposed to be deep cranking, it's the middle of the summer, you can go order all that stuff. But in practice, there's got to be a time where you tell yourself that you need to make the adjustment, or you need to give up on the prevailing pattern that you're supposed to be doing and to go try and find something else.
Right.
And that's kind of what I've done. I've always, we're given 3 days of practice. I've always given, a day and a half or 2 days of practice, towards the techniques that were supposed to win the tournament or dominate the tournament. And if I couldn't figure it out, that's when I went back to the roots. I went back to the stuff that got me to where I am now.
So that is that your threshold? Because this is the question that I hear a lot from our guys is, when do you give up on a pattern? Like, how long do you give it? And you're talking about a full day of practice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because I do a lot of research, and especially being a younger angler, I try to utilize every single piece of equipment as I can. And the biggest thing for us anglers is the internet. We find a lot of stuff on YouTube. We find a lot of stuff just through Google searches. There's a lot of videos, a lot of post-tournament or past tournament results. So anything that can give you an edge, So for me, there's a good chance, coming into the event, that I know how the majority of the checks are going to be cashed. I know how, more than likely, how the tournament's going to be won. Mm-hmm. But the problem is finding those areas or making that pattern work. And if you're not familiar with it, that can be the hardest thing to do, because it's hard to fish somebody else's strengths. Prior to this season, now we're not allowed to get any information. And honestly, early in my career, I never got any information. The last few years, I was able to get some information because I created a network. And I feel like it's honestly hurt me. Because the hardest thing to do is try to catch somebody else's fish. Mm-hmm. And I just found myself trying to do that a lot and forgetting about the roots. So basically, I kind of wanted to just give you guys, some examples and kind of, some things that I've done, and some of the staples. I mean, we all have staples. We all have strengths. I consider myself a pretty versatile angler. And a lot of times versatility gives you consistency. And maybe not tournament wins, but there are times when that versatility can hurt you.
You've got to be able to lay up.
Yeah.
And know when to do that. So what would be the first one? Do you have, are they in your bag here?
Yeah, I mean, I brought a few things, and a couple of them are the brand new Berkeley Max scent baits, but the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk about, it's probably one of the biggest staples out there. A lot of people like wacky worm fishing. Berkeley just came out with a brand new stick bait. It's called the General. I mean, it's an awesome stick bait. And but that's pretty simple, you know. I mean, a lot of people could throw a wacky worm and catch fish, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into something that's going to be a little bit different. And I know I pull this one out right here, and I know Pete knows this because this is a little gem in our area. But I'm gonna get ahead. I'm gonna hold these up for you real quick. So when it comes down to shaky head fishing, you know, a lot of us anglers, you know, we throw shaky heads, and a lot of non-boaters, co-anglers, they throw shaky heads. A shaky head wins a lot of money throughout the entire country, no matter where you're at. So a lot of times, say for an example, you know, I go to a TVA Tennessee River place, and I'm supposed to throw a 10-inch worm. I'm supposed to throw a 3/8 ounce shaky head. There's no telling when that current slows down that you can throw something that's a little bit more subtle.
Yep.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over. So these are 2 different shaky head styles. There's a bunch of different shaky head styles out there on the market, but I'm going to show you, and I'm going to break down what I feel the main difference are to these 2. You know, this one here is a shaky head that has a screw lock to it.
Okay.
The screw lock, a lot of times, you know, whenever I get in a bind, a shaky head buys me bites. The good thing about a screw lock and a shaky head is it allows you to skip it under boat docks. You know, if there's 2 different shaky heads that are like this. The one you can actually thread the soft plastic on it. The other one's a screw lock. What I've noticed, and you can probably say this too from experience, the majority of the fish that you lose on a shaky head is because that worm balls up on the hook. So for me, I definitely like to have a screw lock shaky head. There's a bunch of them out in the market. Just pick your favorite one. This one here is made by Zorro. But I usually like a longer, straighter tail worm. This shaky head, it allows me to skip it under docks, and it's going to have more of a circular action. You know, kind of like a tube. A lot of northern anglers know what a tube does. When it hits the water, it kind of circles down. This here is going to be a great dock skipping bait. It's good all around, just covering water, going down the bank. It's an awesome bait to throw.
Just to comment on that, like you said a couple things that I think are key, because I mean it's one of my staples, and it has been forever. And I'm looking forward to talking about that slider head. But but if you've ever tried to skip a Texas rig, like if you were gonna Texas rig like with a worm weight and even pegging it, and try to skip that, it's next to impossible. It doesn't happen, right? That the weight grabs the water, it stops right where it hits. But by attaching the worm to the head through a shaky head, it just skips better, so you can deliver it, you know, way up under there. And I think that's an absolute key component of that. And you talked about the fall too, because of the nature of the fall. If the weight's attached to the worm, it darts and it makes an erratic fall every time. It'll spiral. It'll do a lot of different things. So but that's one of the keys to the shaky head over the Texas rig. We get that question a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, and another thing about the shaky head too, a lot of times it's faster. You know, I mean, the Texas rig, you know, a lot of times you thread it on there, you know, you might get a bite or 2, and then all of a sudden it gets jacked up, you know, it keeps on falling down, or even like I said before, the other shaky head style where you thread it up the shank of the hook. You know, a lot of times you get a bite or 2, or, you know, you make 20 or 30 skips under a dock, and it naturally just wants to keep on falling down. And that's how you lose fish, is when that bait starts to fall down on the hook. A lot of times what will happen, it'll ball up on right on the hook point, and you won't get that penetration. So definitely having something that has a screw lock, it seems like, you know, it's a little tip, you know, that's definitely allowed me to catch a few more fish, and just be more productive. You know, I mean, less time messing around trying to re-rig a bait and more time fishing. And I mean, that's the biggest thing whenever we're under a clock.
I have a shaky head on the deck of my boat 12 months a year. Whenever I'm fishing, it's on the deck of my boat. But I really like this. This is a head that I use the one we just talked about. But that slider head,
yeah. So
I'm amazed that you brought that out. Not too many people talk about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of old school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I haven't been fishing that long. I've been fishing maybe 7 or 8 years, or, you know, something like that.
That's amazing.
But this slider head was a staple. I mean, before I got on the scene.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it was go-tos, and it's
20, 30 years ago, everybody on the Delaware River, BTC,
I love the slider head
with a slider worm, a 4-inch slider. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of fish.
Oh man, yeah. So and that's what I want to go over here. So this here is Berkeley's new worm. It's the Max Scent worm, and it's called the Hit worm. But the worm, I mean, there's a bunch of different soft plastics out there. And this one here, I like it because it's a little bit smaller in profile. It has a little bit of a thicker body, so that allows you to be able to skip it a little bit better, but stays compact. But the biggest thing is that head design. You can see here how it has more of a hook shank where, like I said before, you kind of thread it on there, so it's going to be a little bit different. But the biggest thing with this bait is its gliding action. So during the springtime, pitching around boat docks, around pilings. The great thing about this head design too is it's also really weedless, so you can throw it around a lot of grass, you can throw it around wood. It doesn't get hung up near as much. And the biggest thing when it comes down to all this stuff that we do and these little nuances, these little tricks, is just something a little bit different. And I know you emphasize it a little bit, and I know you make a lot of trips to the Upper Bay and do a lot of business taking out clients, and I can tell you, I mean, I've never been on your boat, but I can almost promise you some clients caught some big ones on this bait.
It's huge. And let me, there's a couple different versions of it too. Like the original slider head had this real light wire, and they still sell that. This is a pro slider head, which is the one I use. And it comes in a 3/0, which I think this one is, as well as a 2/0. So you got some options. They really upgraded this. A lot of guys in the bass fishing, tournament bass fishing, where we're having problems, we're bending the original slider head open, and but this pro slider has fixed that, and it is super weedless. Like a lot of times when I'm in brush piles, this style shaky head, sometimes you just can't get it through because of the complicated nature of the brush pile, or if there's moss, the moss will hang up on the head. This comes through. It comes through all that stuff, and it definitely glides. And yeah, you're right. It catches a lot of big fish on the Upper Chesapeake for me, as well as all over the country.
And I mean everywhere. I mean it's really become one of them baits that, like I said before, kind of talked about, prior to talking about the technique itself. It's a bait that's really allowed me to catch more fish. I mean, everywhere I go throughout the entire country, if there's a bass that lives in it, it's going to eat one of these two baits. It's going to eat a shaky head. It's going to eat a slider head. They just flat out, it's a fish catching bait. I mean, a lot of guys throw a drop shot. A lot of guys throw a wacky worm. But this bait here, it's just a little bit more weedless. I like it because it's a faster presentation for me. The majority of my bites come on an initial fall, so it's not something that I need to sit there and soak like a drop shot. I can just pitch it in there, hop it once or twice, reel it back in. And that's one of the biggest things when it comes down to fishing new bodies of water, is if you can pitch something in there and get a bite on the fall or on your first couple hops and reel it back in and cast out again, that's just you covering more water.
You're covering the water.
And that's something that's really important. And the good thing about it too, especially this slider head, you can catch some suspended fish too around some boat docks because it's gliding action. But definitely when it comes down to me being at a place and maybe pulling a little bit of an audible, one of the first things I pick up is one of these two.
Well, man, that's sound advice. And for the guys that are watching that are struggling to get confident to catch fish every time they go fishing, whether it's a farm pond, whether you're going kayak fishing or whatever it is, man, it's tough to beat the shaky head. I tell you, people have asked that. We get that question sometimes, like if you had to pick one tool to feed your family with, if you had to, what would it be? I'm telling you, shaky head.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
my tool.
it's hard. It's hard. See, a lot of people pick a jig, and I've got a jig in this bag too, and I throw a jig a lot. But the thing is, a jig, you're gonna get bites on it, but you're not gonna get near the bites on a shaky head.
Right.
I mean, on a shaky, it's gonna get way more.
Twice
bites.
as many.
It's twice, 3, 4 times as many. Now you might not catch the sheer average quality, but I've caught 8-pounders on a shaky head.
Yes.
So I mean, I know it catches big ones.
You're darn right, and it'll catch them every time. So if you're looking to be more consistent every time you go, take some of those tips. But that's a great one. Great one's a shaky head.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to get ahead and ask any questions.
I see E back there.
Okay.
Looks like we might have a shaky head
One
question
quick
or
shaky
something.
head
What do we
question
got?
from Adam. What's your go-to plastic for the shaky head? You got to pick one plastic
Good question.
to use with it. What are you gonna
Man,
throw?
if I had to pick one, it would honestly be the brand new Berkley Maxcent D worm. It's a slow. I mean, it's this one right here. For me, I try to stay in pretty neutral colors. Okay. I try to stay in pretty neutral colors. You know, I mean, you can get crazy with it, but generally, if I'm throwing a shaky head, I'm not fishing real muddy water. So I try to stay with the shades of green pumpkin, watermelon. Normally, I like some type of flake in it, but it just for me, definitely trying to stay around them neutral colors and them green pumpkins and watermelons. And that D-worm is a pretty awesome bait. The scent that's incorporated with the max scent, I mean, it catches 45% more fish, and it's printed on the label of the package. So I mean, you know it's the truth, and I mean it's something that's new, and a lot of times, you know, showing them bass something a little bit different can catch you.
Well,
catch you
scent is absolutely key, and it's something that a lot of us don't pay attention to. Berkeley's famous for their scents and having success with them. One of the baits that I use, and I've been using it so long that I have so much confidence in it, I just can't get away from it. And it's the trick worm.
Yeah.
It's a Zoom trick worm. It's a Zoom finesse worm. You know, I like it for a couple of. One of the reasons why I really like it is it's got a flat bottom, and I think that somehow helps the glide and the erratic fall as that bait goes down. But I've used that bait, you know, so long over the years that I like to use the 6-inch trick worm. It's a little bit more weight when I want to skip further, make a longer cast. And then I go down to the finesse worm, and I use the neutral colors that you use. But one of my all-time secret colors is old school black grape.
Yes.
Black grape.
Black grape.
Or red shad, black and red.
Staple.
Yeah.
Same
Staple tidal water color, man. Tannic, tidal. I don't know, man.
And
Something about it.
There's something about it. It's old school. But you know, when you get in that stained water, that grape is so visible.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you know, somebody flicked the light switch on it, and I think, you know, because it doesn't look like anything in nature to me. I mean, I never catch a crawfish that's grape.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, for whatever reason, you know, catch a ton of fish on it. But those are my go-to baits. Great question. Who was that?
That was Adam.
Adam. Thank you, Adam.
Adrian, I'm sorry if you already addressed this, but whose head is this?
Zorro's. Yeah, Zorro makes it. It's a screw lock, shaky head. I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there. That head design is a little bit different. It's kind of got it's not just a standard ball head.
Right.
So it tends to go through a little bit of structure a little bit easier. And it's a good one, man. I like it.
Are you a braid to leader guy, or are you a straight floor? What are you using?
You know, if I can get away with braid to fluorocarbon, you know, I'll get ahead and do that. But there's some things that you simply can't get away with it. Get away with it on, and that particular technique, if I'm not fishing around a lot of rock, then I'll fish braided fluorocarbon. If I'm strictly fishing rock, I'll throw straight fluorocarbon. And the reason for that is, I mean, you tend to snag up a little bit easier. I don't care what anybody says, your connecting knot is going to be your weak point. So if you're getting snagged a lot and breaking off a lot, more than likely you're going to have to retie that knot throughout the course of the day. And for me, I don't want to spend any more time than I have to retying. So I tend to throw straight fluorocarbon over.
Braid will dig into wood too.
What's that?
I said braid will dig into wood
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Yep. A little tip on retying a knot. What you do is here. Do you know how to know when you have to retie?
No.
When you grab the lure, you know, when you've been fishing around rock or wood or whatever it may be, and you grab the lure like this. I put the hook right there around my fingernail, and then I grab the line with this hand and I pull real hard, and if it breaks, I retie. That's how you know
that.
Retie. Is there any other shaky head questions?
Not necessarily shaky head, but I actually like this one as more of a general question for fishing this time of year. So the user actually is Morning from Arctic Cold, New Hampshire. That's his username. So Morning. And the question is, how long do you guys go with a presentation getting no bites until you try something different? Because he feels like he's always waiting too long before he changes it up.
You want to tackle that first?
Yeah, I guess I can. So for me, it really just depends. You know, I very rarely fish with a few rods on the deck of my boat. Normally I have a bunch of them rigged up, and I'm an instinctual fisherman, you know, so like I like to have a lot of stuff rigged up. If I'm going down the bank, and say if I'm cranking a square bill down the bank and all of a sudden one blows up over my shoulder, you know, I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to pick that topwater up and I'm going to fire that topwater over there. If it starts raining out and I'm throwing on a buzzbait pattern, I'm going to pick up a buzzbait and I'm going to catch them on a buzzbait, you know. So there's definitely going to be them situational those times throughout the course of the day where there's going to be a birdie in your ear telling you need to throw something else, you know, whether it be 5 or 6 casts. So to answer your question, I'll throw one bait for a long period of time without getting any bites, but there's going to be, you know, 5 or 6 casts every 30 or 40 minutes, and I'm going to pick something else up and I'm going to cast it at it real quick. Or say if I'm going down the bank and I'm square bill fishing and I see a nice laydown, you know, I may parallel that laydown with that square bill, but I'm going to flip a jig in that laydown before I go by it.
Right.
You know, so there's definitely going to be other things thrown in there throughout that period when I'm throwing that.
I got to jump in
presentation.
because I do the exact same thing. I don't go down a bank with one rod ever.
You can't.
And
I mean,
I think that's got to be from just fishing around here.
yeah.
Because, I mean, that's how it's all junk fishing.
Yeah.
It's hardly ever a pattern.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You see a lot of these guys, you know, they get dialed into one technique, and that could be you. You know, you could be out there and say you're a big swim bait fisherman or whatever, and you're out there and you're throwing that swim bait and you're getting a lot of followers, but there's going to be a time when you need to pick something up and take a couple casts with it, because that's gonna tell the difference whether you weigh in 5 fish or you weigh in 4, or you know you weigh in a tournament winning bag or you weigh in 10 pounds. You know, so I think it's always important, no matter what presentation you're dialed into, to have alternatives on the deck.
Unless you're Andy Morgan,
yeah,
who fishes with one
five
rod
flipping rods
at a time. But you know, you make a great point, and you know that question is key. Is how long you stay with something. And here's something that I've kind of well, I remember Kevin talking at one of our seminars about, he has like a 10 or 15 cast rule, or no, I'm sorry, it's 15-minute rule, and he'll stay with something for 15 minutes, and if nothing's happening, he moves, he changes every 15 minutes. That's a very, very aggressive approach. I've actually tried to duplicate that. And it's
you can't do that on tidal water. I promise you that.
Yeah, it's challenging, but the way I look at it on how long to stay with something and is what's happening in the environment. Like if you've got positive fishing conditions, right? Like the water temperature's warming, it's overcast, light breeze, the fish should be biting. So if what you're using is not working, you need to start thinking about changing efficiently. Because the fish should be biting. They are biting somewhere in that condition. But if it's the opposite, I tend to stay a little bit longer. Like if the water temperature's falling, if it's a cold front, if it's, just difficult conditions, no current, whatever it may be. Fishing pressure. I have a tendency to stay with baits and techniques a little bit longer. So I hope that helps, but that's a really, really good question and some good answers. You got another one, E?
Yeah. A few people chimed in with a few more shaky head questions. Big Mother Bassbone wants to know if the shaky head, if you guys ever break it out in water, say 20 feet deep or more.
Oh, shoot, absolutely. I mean, I've caught them on a shaky head out to 40 feet. So, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's a really good deep water application. I mean, it catches fish. I mean, a lot of times, I keep on talking about the TVA, but I mean, it works everywhere. It's a great brush pile bait, and a lot of times, you're fishing brush piles out in 15 to 25 feet of water. So pretty much, I mean, the one key thing that you got to make sure that whenever you're throwing this shaky head is you have to throw it on light line. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to get this 1/8 head down 25 feet, you can't be throwing it on 12-pound fluorocarbon or 15-pound line. You got to throw it on light stuff, and you got to throw it on a spinning rod. I mean, a lot of guys will throw these beefier shaky heads on bigger stuff, on bait casting equipment, and throw it on 15 to 20-pound fluorocarbon. But these particular shaky heads that I'm talking about, I rig them up on a medium to a medium light action spinning rod. I throw it generally on braid to fluorocarbon if I can get away with it. And it's light braid. I mean, it's 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. And that really allows me to get that bait down there to the bottom and really feel what's down there, too.
Right. That's what I was just going to add to that is, man, the braid is a critical thing for me when it gets in that depth, because you can feel the bites, the sensitivity, and man, 8-pound braid is so thin.
Yeah,
and you
can cast it a mile.
You can cast it a mile, and it doesn't have a lot of resistance in the water, and you can feel things a lot better. So yeah, I can recall situations in 20, 25 feet that I've been real successful with a shaky head. But BTC, I think we're going to give something away for the best name, Big Mother
Yes.
Bass Bone. With that question,
Fair enough.
I
Fair
think,
enough.
I think he's got to win something.
Yeah, he's getting something.
I think we'll throw you out a Wego hat, brother. Great question. Thank
Good
you.
question, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we got another one here that's I think pretty worthy of a winner. And it's the username's Frenchie. He wants to know, does the temperature of the water dictate how heavy of a weight you use with a shaky head?
That's a great question. You want to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, I can. So typically, whenever I'm shaky head fishing, I like to use the lightest shaky head that I can use as long as I'm remaining, bottom contact. And so a lot of it necessarily isn't dependent on water temperature. A lot of times it's more so your current, your wind, that type of thing. So for me, I just always just try to stay with that simple rule. Just, stay with the lightest head you can get away with. And typically that's what I do throughout the entire year is just stay with that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I'm throwing a shaky head, it's the same deal. It's on the lighter side of things because I think it helps the bait glide better.
Yeah.
It gives
it a little better action.
Yeah, a little better action during the fall. I found that I don't know about you, but my magic weight is 3/16.
Yep.
And I go lighter. I go heavier sometimes, but I'm almost always throwing 3/16. How about you?
I mean, I use them all. I mean, honestly, yeah. I use them from 16th ounce all the way up to 3/4 ounce whenever I'm fishing real deep. But, I mean, for me, probably the biggest all around is 3/16 maybe 1/8 ounce, something like that. I like lighter shaky heads.
Yeah. Well, it's a great question about the weight, but it's definitely most of the time I think we're both throwing it on the lighter side of things.
Yep.
So, hey, great tips and information on the shaky head, and I saw you take out another lure.
Yeah.
That I was surprised to see you take it out
So which one was that? I don't know. There's a couple things in here.
because it was a surface lure,
Oh, okay.
and I thought to myself, man, this to me, if I had to like a go-to bait, this is for me. It's more situational or something, but you're bringing this out and talking as a consistent tool. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on how you're using these.
Yeah, so pretty much, I was talking to Brian a little bit about this before we went ahead and did this BUTV, but there are thousands of topwaters out there to choose from. And I mean, you can literally make your head spin with how many topwaters are out there between walking baits, prop baits, pop bars, all different types of things. But the old school, going back to the roots, just traditional buzz bait. I have two of them here, and I'm going to tell you the differences here in a little bit of why I throw which one. But this bait here, I've caught more fish on a buzz bait than any other topwater that I own. And the great thing about a buzz bait is you can put this buzz bait in places where it's really sketchy to put a topwater because a traditional topwater have treble hooks. They tend to snag up a little bit better. This bait here in particular, a lot of times you can reel it over vegetation, you can skip it under stuff. But there's a couple small tweaks, and a lot of people probably already do this, but for people that aren't really familiar with a buzzbait, I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to go over to you those couple little tweaks that I do. Traditionally, when you buy a buzzbait, you're going to have a buzzbait and it's going to have a skirt, and that's it. That's all you're going to have. There's a bunch of different colors out there. For me, I keep it real simple. I throw either black or I throw white. I don't throw anything else. My blades, I throw silver and I throw gold. And the only two differences why I throw these two, and I'm going to tell you here in a second, and I'm going to break it down. But this one here, this is just a traditional 1/4 ounce buzzbait. I add this little bead in front of the blade. That's one little modification I do. What that allows it to do is it doesn't get near as much grass on it. It tends to actually push the grass away from that blade. So if you're reeling it around a lot of eelgrass, eelgrass is an absolute nightmare when it comes down to buzzbait fishing, because it definitely does get tangled up a lot in the blade. So I tend to add that little bead to it. Definitely helps you reel it through that structure or whatever you're trying to fish a lot cleaner. The biggest thing, and I mean this has gotten huge lately, but it's threading out on a soft plastic. And the soft plastic does two things. It gives it a little bit bigger profile, but the biggest thing what it does is it allows you to be able to skip this bait. So a lot of people, when I first started, I remember skipping a Senko around and skipping under boat docks 20 feet. And I remember meeting a guy in my local bass club, and he's like, dude, I can skip a jig. I'm like, dude, you can't skip no jig. That's not even possible. And I watched him, and I was like, holy cow, man, he skips a jig. And now I hear everybody skipping a jig around, but not many people are skipping a buzzbait. Yeah. And threading on a soft plastic. I don't know if you guys watched in my head-to-head match against Mike Iaconelli this past year, but I caught a lot of my fish the second round on a buzzbait, and I was threading on a soft plastic, and I was catching them around a lot of boat docks, skipping under boat docks, and it allows it to be able to slow that bait down a little bit more. So traditionally, what I'll do is this 1/4 ounce, I'll throw this probably about 70% of the time or so. But then when the water gets real muddy and it gets stained, the slower you can reel a buzzbait, the more bites you're going to get. And that's when I'll jump to the 1/2 ounce. You see I got a big giant blade on there. It's a gold blade. And what this big blade allows you to do is allows you to just really be able to slow it down. But again, you can see I have a soft plastic threaded on here. I like something that's flat. This here is actually the Berkeley Havoc Pit Boss. It's got a flat bottom to it. Allows you to be able to, again, skip it underneath boat docks and up underneath the lay downs and that type of stuff. But whenever the water's muddy, you want to make sure you throw a big blade. Whenever the water is somewhat clear, you want to throw the smaller blade. And just by far, one of the best top water success for me. And whenever it's raining, if it's cloudy, the first couple hours in the morning, you can almost bet I'm throwing a buzzbait.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, you talked about colors real quick. When do you throw black and when do you throw white?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I throw black definitely more over white. The only time I really throw white is on a shad spawn. A buzzbait's a great shad spawn bait. Tend maybe a little bit later in the year, before that water temperature really drops and they're really keen in on shad, I'll tend to throw, a white buzzbait. But for me, I mean, I tend to have more success with a darker color, with a black. This year is actually black and blue. But I mean, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. But definitely the darker shades for me on top water, I feel like it just lets them see it a little bit better. It displaces it, shows a little bit more. But definitely. And another thing too, a lot of guys, experiment with different lines, with different techniques, with different, rod weights, all that stuff. And people are going to think I'm crazy when I mention this right now, but actually a buddy of mine, Jacob Wheeler, he actually got me on this. I throw a buzzbait on fluorocarbon. And people think topwater fishing, fluorocarbon, they don't mix. It sinks, but the thing about a buzzbait is you got to remember, when you skip that bait underneath the dock, or if you make a long cast, the first thing you do, you engage the reel and you keep that rod tip up high.
That's right.
Very rarely, maybe on your first couple cranks, but for me, I throw the Revo Rocket, which is a lightning fast reel when it comes down to buzzbait fishing. By far the best reel you can ever buy for a buzzbait. But that line isn't in the water. No part of that line is sitting in the water because your rod tip's up high, your line tie's here, and everything is out of the water. So when it comes down to fluorocarbon, now you're taking the benefits from fluorocarbon, which are no stretch, and you're able to cast it better than braid. I mean, for an example, you throw a heavy bait or you try to skip braid, a lot of times it'll just stop you. You'll get the knots, it'll dig in, and you might break that bait off, or it might just be a headache. And fluorocarbon, now you have that similar no stretch as you do with braided line. Now a lot of guys throw mono. The problem is with mono, now you have a lot of stretch.
Right.
So next time you're out buzzbait fishing, maybe just give that fluorocarbon a try. Just a little tip when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
I think we got a question.
Yeah, what do you got, E?
Yeah, as far as buzzbaits go, going back to water temp, what's the water temp you see when you put away the buzzbait? Or I guess reverse, like in the spring, what's the water temp you see where you break out the buzzbait?
For me, magic temperature is like 55 degrees.
55.
That's when you'll start getting your first few bites. A lot of times in bites early in the spring, they're not going to happen until the afternoon. First thing in the morning, you might still get some bites, but it definitely seems, from my experience, when you go to these lakes and you're on a warming trend, and the water, you launch your boat and the water's 50 degrees, it's 40 degrees out, whatever. But then throughout that course of that day, then back of them pockets start warming up, the temperature starts to rise, and then fish want to get up there on the bank to warm up their eggs. And definitely, then backs of them pockets warm up faster, and that's when I'll start getting them bites on the buzzbait. I've caught them as cold as 50 degrees, but that 55 to 60, that's definitely the magic time.
Excellent. And, and it does, there are crazy scenarios where it works in cold temperatures.
Yeah.
Like we've had some tournaments, I remember them, man, from years ago where, it's freezing cold, snowing, and the buzzbait wins the tournament.
Yep. And I mean, it's a surface lure, and I've got a couple other things that I throw that are really similar to a buzzbait that work as well. And I mean, it's just one of them things where we talk about all the time covering water, and there's no better way to cover water and to catch active fish. And as well as I do, a buzzbait is one of the biggest bass fishing. I mean, if you want to catch a kicker, if you want to go out there and catch lunker for your tournament, throw a buzzbait the first hour in the summertime. I mean, it's going to catch you a big one.
Yeah, it takes fish out of their comfort zone. That's what top water does.
It's obnoxious.
It takes a fish that maybe is inactive or lethargic and might not strike anything. You could fish a jig past it sometimes, not bite it.
Yeah.
But buzzing that buzzbait over its head will capture the strike. Do you use a trailer hook?
And that's one thing I was going to mention. It's tough whenever it comes down to putting trailers on there to find a trailer hook that's going to run good without fouling up in the soft plastic. For me, I'll throw two. I'll throw a traditional trailer hook, and I'll also throw a treble hook sometimes. If I'm fishing around a lot of open water, I mean, I remember, back in the club days, talking to some guys, and after we'd weighed in our fish, and they're like, man, I had 15 bites in the morning, and I only caught one. Like you get a lot of times you have a lot of fish come up and nip at it.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing you're going to see with this buzzbait that I throw, it doesn't have that big of a hook.
Mm-hmm.
You get around. I mean, there's a lot of buzzbaits out there. You get around those buzzbaits that have really big hooks on them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, them fish that come up and nip at it, they're not going to get it. So for me, I feel like the smaller the hook in a buzzbait, a lot of times it's going to be a little bit better because them fish that kind of just swipe at it, a lot of times it'll get them. But yeah, I mean, if I'm fishing around a lot of open water and I'm not worried about that, like for me, you might think I'm crazy, but I had one of the best smallmouth days of my life on the Susquehanna River, throwing a buzzbait, and I was catching them on a chartreuse buzzbait, chartreuse on chartreuse, in like 2 feet of water. It was insane. But I missed like my first 15 of them. I put on a treble hook, and I caught like every single one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Well, it's funny when I'm doing open water, I have a rigging that I attach a treble hook to about a 3-inch piece of braided line.
Yeah.
So it hangs back there. I do that with spinner baits and buzz baits for smallmouth.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm fishing it quite a bit. Hey, everybody, I just want to remind everybody you're watching Bass University TV live. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you're watching us on Facebook, want to invite you to go over and subscribe at bassu.tv. It's 10 days free right now, and you'll be able to get your question in on the IM board to Adrian or myself. And whatever question you may have, we're giving away tons of prizes. We got trivia questions coming. We're giving away a WeGo 66, as well as a bunch of other great prizes today. So that's all coming. So go over to bassu.tv and subscribe 10 days free.
Use the promo code TRYBU.
You can type in the code TRYBU, and that'll get you the 10 days free, or you can click on that button when you go over to bassu.tv. Either way, come over, check it out. If you subscribe annually, you get 2 months free. We got great benefits. We provide 2 brand new instructional seminars every week. You'll get the Bass University Live every month, where you'll be able to get your question answered. We got great features and discounts. So come on over and join us at Bass University TV. I see we got a couple more IMs coming in from our subscribers.
Yeah, another great question from David. This is going to be our next winner. I mean, he just pressed that way too soon. But
That's the wrong sound.
And the wrong sound. So David from Wisconsin asks, in your opinion, what do you guys think about buzzbaits that clank or make a lot of noise? There's certain times when you're going to break out that buzzbait versus a more silent one. What's your guys' opinion on that?
That's a great question. Noise, the clackers versus the silent. I saw you had a couple silent baits out here. What are your thoughts on the silent versus the clacker?
Man, so if you can tune, and by what I talk about tuning your buzzbait, if you can tune your buzzbait to really squeal, you want the squealers. Squealers are the good ones. So definitely, whenever I get a new buzzbait, I want to make sure it has a lot of sound. I also want to make sure it has a bubble trail. And a couple of the things that I do to give it a little bit more noise, the first thing I do whenever I buy one, I hang it out the window my whole way home. I really
Yeah,
try to break
old
that
school.
buzzbait in. Just old
Yeah.
school. I know people tie it to their antenna of their car. They do all kinds of crazy things. Another thing that I do is a lot of times this stopper here isn't crimped. I make sure that's crimped so it's one less moving part, so it tends to rub on it a little bit better. And then you can also file down the bottom of the blade. If you do those couple things, the clacker's good. It makes a lot of noise, but a traditional buzzbait's going to catch them too.
Yep.
I definitely have. I've had some days where maybe the clacker was a little bit better, but if you make sure that buzzbait's tuned right, it's gonna get just as many bites.
And I'm like you. I take squeak over clack.
Yeah,
Almost every time. But I do have some clackers that I keep in the boat because I've had a lot of success with them. And the way that I've done it, Adrian, is like if I miss a couple on a buzzbait, I'll try the clacker. I'll throw that noise to see if I can get him to commit or vice versa. So that's when I usually experiment with clacking versus squeak. But man, I take squeak over clack most of the time, except, the one time when I've had a lot of success with it too is when we've got wind, when you've got a little bit louder,
little chop.
yeah, little chop, where that bait can get lost. That clacker will definitely help you.
Yeah, you get around some muddy water. Hey, who was that? David. So I got a couple giveaways that I'm giving away personally.
Woo!
And David, that was a good one, man, because I kind of forgot about it a little bit. I got some of them in my box too. But you're gonna win a $25 gift card to Tackle Direct. That was a good one. I like that one. I got a couple more giveaways. I'm waiting for them though, but that was a good question. I like that one.
Dave, that's a great question. Not a very good and creative name like Big Mother Bassbone, but good question nonetheless. You got another one for us, E?
Yeah, this is going back to what Adrian was talking about, putting a soft plastic on the buzzbait. Is that something that you're always doing? And if you're not, are you putting a trailer hook on there?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, the only time I don't have a soft plastic on my buzzbait is when a fish rips it off and I get too antsy to cast again. I mean, for me, I've got to the point where I strictly throw a buzzbait with a soft plastic on it, and I mean, it's definitely something that not only does it allow you to be able to cast it more efficiently, it gives it a little bit more weight, so you can cast it around places and objects and be better on your target. But I feel like it gives the bass something to hold on to. A lot of times, them fish will come up and they might what I call push it, where they kind of just go right through the buzzbait, or they might nip at it. This here, whenever you put on a soft plastic, it gives them something to grab. And so for that, I mean, I tend to really throw one with a soft plastic on it. And I mean, that's something that I've done. I've also thrown a buzzbait with just, taking off the skirt and putting on a toad. That works really well too. I know there's been a lot of money won on that the last couple of years.
I was going to
Stop
say,
right
I've seen
there.
Most people do it, seem to do it that way.
Yeah, that's like a big trend, right? Guys are
Huge
pulling
trend.
their skirts off and throwing just a toad.
Yep.
Guys are pulling their skirts off.
Dropping the skirt, man. No, and that's something that's really good too. I mean, I throw that a lot. The problem is the majority of the toads that are out there, and that the guys are throwing. Okay, so most of the guys are throwing a Zoom horny toad. A lot of people know that. They're throwing a bigger profile buzzbait. You can't put a Zoom horny toad on a 1/4 ounce buzzbait. You just can't. It overpowers it. The bait will start to roll. It won't give it the right action. So if you're in a highly pressured place or just trying to get bites, this 1/4 ouncer around the house and also throughout the entire country is going to get more bites than that. But I mean, if you want to get ahead and throw something like this, a bigger blade, a 1/2 ounce buzzbait, you can take that skirt off and put on that soft plastic. And again, it's giving you the same thing. It's giving you more accuracy because it adds weight to that bait, and it also is going to allow you to skip it under a boat dock a mile. And I mean, that's the biggest difference when it comes down to. I know this was a huge rant about buzzbaits, but that is the biggest difference when it comes down to buzzbait fishing. Is you're putting a topwater in a place where a topwater hasn't been. Really, if you want to, I mean, you can say that pretty much the only two things you're going to put there are a hollow belly frog or some type of frog or a buzzbait up a boat dock. That's just it. I mean, you're not going to be able to throw anything else there.
Adrian, is that on the 1/4 ounce? Is that a 3-inch pit boss or?
Yeah, so I like throwing a smaller one.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I mean you don't want to overpower. I mean, generally when it comes down to to me, I always try to match the presentation or match the bait. I mean, you know, you don't want to throw a 2-inch square bill with, you know, 1/0 hooks. You know, I mean, you want to try to match it as well as you can, and that's just what I do here. I throw the smaller pit boss. Again, it's got the flatter body. If anybody's ever fished a pit boss and reeled it through the water, them legs kick pretty well, and it just makes a perfect bait for a buzz bait.
I got to jump in with that, Pete. Brodzik, Dave, Fathead, back when he used to fish a few years ago, he started throwing the 1/8 ounce. Again, Delaware River
spinning
small
rod.
baits, you know, that kind of deal. But he was throwing an 1/8 ounce, and he's the first person I ever saw do it. But he was gluing a little tube on the back of it, and the reason was the skip.
Yeah.
You know, 1/8 ounce spinning rod braid, and
Nice.
skipping that under in lay downs and docks and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Dave was doing that. But again, you know, gluing the soft plastic. You glue? Do you need to glue them on?
Yeah,
there?
I mean, you have to. I mean, when
Yeah.
it comes down to that, I mean, I generally see the hard part about it is buzzbait fishing. You tend to get one that's really good. You know, you tend to get that right buzzbait that's making that right sound. So it's not like you can pre-rig a bunch of them, you know, and just roll with it. I mean, normally if I got one that's working, I'll try to work that until the blade breaks. You know, unfortunately that happens too. So normally I always keep a bottle of super glue at my fingertips, and if I need to glue on a soft plastic, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, once the squeaker starts squeaking, depending on the blade, it's like you get 100 casts.
Yeah.
And it's like the friction gets so much that eventually that blade's going to bust through.
Yeah.
But boy, that 100 casts are magic. And I see you, but I wanted to ask you, you didn't, are these custom? Are these, can people go purchase these?
Yeah,
Whose are these?
so a couple of the ones that I throw. This one here, the smaller one, is actually a local company that makes it. The larger one is actually the Zorro Head Knocker.
Okay.
So there's two different ones that I throw. I throw both of them. I mean, the biggest thing when it comes down to it is, I mean, you can get caught up with, you know, the different colors and all that stuff. But for me, I throw two, and that's it, really. I throw the bigger gold
Keeping it
blade
simple.
when it's muddy, and then I throw the smaller silver blade, lighter one, and I'll throw that when it's generally, you know, more of an all-around type buzzbait.
How many anglers do we see at the top level keeping it simple? We got another one sitting right here. What do you got, E?
Yeah, I got one more good buzzbait question from Derek. He asks, when and how do you adjust the speed of retrieve with your buzzbait?
Good question.
Fast or
Speed.
slow retrieve?
that a
Speed of
winner?
retrieve.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
the
think so.
biggest thing when it comes down to that, and I kind of emphasized a little bit about using a fast gear ratio reel. Generally, when I'm buzzbait fishing, the great thing about it is my trolling motor's on like 60%. You know, I'm hauling down the bank. So I want to make sure I have a reel that's going to keep up with it. So I throw the Revo Rocket. It's a fast gear ratio reel. It's got a bigger handle on it, oversized handle. And it's definitely been a key when it comes down to buzzbait fishing. It doesn't make you really try to overpower it. You know, you don't have to sit there and really try to reel it in as fast as you can, just barely to keep up with it. But for me, what I do is I don't really vary the retrieves that much. What I'll do is I'll cast it out there. I'll engage the reel almost as the bait's still flying. So when it hits the water, I'm already turning. And I just keep that rod tip up. And as long as that bait is up on top of the water and that blade's kicking, leaving a bubble trail, and I can hear it at the end of my cast, you know, that's where I want to be. Every once in a while, I may like kind of just pop it just to get it a little bit more action, and then I'll go ahead and keep on reeling it pretty steady. But I mean, I don't ever really burn a buzzbait on top of the water, because I mean, if you try to burn a buzzbait on top of the water, it'll tend to try to roll a little bit on you. But just a nice steady retrieve, and as long as that bait's up there and that blade's doing what it needs to do and it's squealing loud, that's where you want. That's the sweet spot.
Or hitting the dot piling, or
Yeah.
hitting that little stick up
Yep.
that you're sweeping it past.
Yep.
So these are great questions, guys, and thanks for subscribing to Bass University TV, and we're going to keep all the questions coming. I think BTC, do you want to do a trivia question and then take a break? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Roll us out a trivia question, and we're gonna give away the WeGo 66. We're gonna give that away at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be our big prize. But we got a lot more prizes to give away. We got more WeGo hats, and Brian has to do some checking on his question.
Like usual, don't have the trivia questions totally prepared. That's
What's
all
that?
good. Is my mic even on? I guess not. Never
I
mind.
don't know. I don't. Your mic may be on, but I can't hear you. But anyway, Did we get checked on the trivia question? Are we ready to go?
We are ready to go.
All right.
That's a good
This
one.
is some
Roll.
Adrian Avena trivia.
All right.
What is the name of Adrian's chocolate lab?
Wow. That's great. I bet you can find that maybe on social media somewhere. I'm sure you're probably not going to find that by Googling it. But
Oh, you know what? I just thought of one that would have made. Well, what the hell? It's not going to be a trivia question. But all three of you guys, there's two of you sitting there, but I'm thinking of Mike as well. You've all won on Champlain,
that's right.
right? Did you
Yeah.
win on Champlain?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've won and Mike's won.
Yep. You won
Something
an
about
FLW there.
Yeah.
I won an FLW there,
Start. Yep.
and Mike won
Yeah,
Bassmaster.
I won my tournament after I sat through a Bass U class and you broke it down for me. Honestly.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what
I
the
mean, I
hell?
might
Go
have
into
took a
that.
couple tips from there, but honestly, it was after a Bass University class. I went up to Champlain. I remember to this day, it was David Wolak. He was talking about grass fishing, and Pete was talking about throwing his swim bait for smallmouth. And I remember it like it was yesterday, man.
No kidding.
Yep. Pretty neat.
Bass University graduate goes on to win FLW tournament and qualify for the elites. All because if you're not subscribed, go to bassu.tv right now and get subscribed and raise your fishing level. Thank you for that compliment,
pretty
and that's amazing. I did not know that I had any part in that, and I didn't receive any royalty check. But congratulations on winning that.
Yeah, it's
tournament.
been a while, man. I'm starting to forget about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I need to step it up a little bit. You know,
It's a game changer when you get your first win.
It is, and fortunately for me, it happened early in my career. You know, it's allowed me to kind of get that jump start. You know, that little break that I needed early. You know, and since then I've had some really consistent years. I haven't won one since. You know, I've had a couple thirds, but I mean, you need to get reminded. You need to have another one of them wins in your career. To really know that, you know, you're out here to compete. You know, I mean, anybody can go out there on a given week and cash a check, but whenever you're in that position to win and you seal that deal, you know, that just puts you on a different level.
Yeah, it's super special, and that was awesome. I remember hearing and watching it. I don't think I was in that. I might have been. I can't remember, but I remember you winning that tournament, and it was awesome. You know, that you were able to accomplish that, and to see what you've done and how far you've taken the sport, you know, is really amazing because you've only been doing it for such a short period of time. But I fully expect that there's going to be some more wins in your future. And if I could offer even any advice at all, is the one thing that I've learned about winning tournaments is you just can't force it.
No.
You know, you have to listen and you have to let it come to you. And it's a weird scenario because you're a hardcore competitor all the time.
Yeah.
But wins are special, and you almost have to let it come to you. But I got a feeling that that's going to be coming to you again here real soon in the near future. Maybe this year we'll start out at Lake Martin.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I definitely agree with you. You know, I mean, there's definitely people that put themselves in that position more often.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of people have won tournaments when they least expected it. You know, and that's kind of what you were saying, where you kind of just have to just let it happen when it happens to happen.
Yeah, and that's the truth. They least expect it because they're just learning the pattern, right? They're learning that pattern at practice, and the pattern develops for them during the tournament.
Yep.
And that's so often that's how these big tournaments are won. So, do we have any answers or responses to the question, E?
We got a winner.
First of all, the answer to that was Triton. And the first one to get it, his username is Morning from Arctic Cold, New Hampshire. So he is the winner. He was the first one to get it.
Hey, who is that? Do we know who that is?
No, that's his
knows you.
username.
Are we allowed to know?
If he wants to tell us.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. But he's got to send us his information, so
Okay.
we'll find out.
Hey, that's
Who's
a
talking, yeah.
great answer. And
Cool.
Arctic cold. That sounds balmy
Yeah.
up in New Hampshire right now. I'm sure maybe you guys are above zero. I don't know. We just barely are down here. But all great questions, and we got a lot more. We got some more trivia questions coming. A lot more giveaways. That's all going to be coming right now. BTC, we're going to take a break.
Yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube and you want to get involved and win, we got a lot of stuff we're giving away yet.
Now's
So
the time.
Now's the time.
Yeah,
Take a
I
little break.
still got a few more things I want to give away.
What do you got?
Well, I got another Tackle Direct gift card. I also got a New Thread Sun shirt that I'm telling you right now, I don't know. Have you ever wore one?
No.
No? It's a UV protectant sun shirt that's got a hood on it. And I mean, it sounds simple, but I'm telling you right now, when it comes down to just to sight fishing, I mean, they're almost as good as polarized sunglasses, I'm telling you.
Really?
Yeah, because it cuts. You put that hood up and it cuts the glare from the side of your face. You know, that's like one of the biggest things. You know, people think, you know, you can put on great pair of sunglasses, but if you still have light penetration coming in through the sides, that's why you see a lot of guys, you know, they're always cupping their hands around their head.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sun shirt, I got that given away.
We won't be giving that away tonight. Coming home with the host tonight. But you got anything else good?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, we got a bunch of WeGo stuff. Yep. I'm a huge supporter of WeGo. I mean, once you guys have one, I mean, you're gonna recommend that to a lot of your family members and friends because it's a tool that you must have.
Cool. We're gonna go to a break. I'm gonna give a trivia question as we go to break. So guys, comment why we got this Bass U video up with Freddie Boom. But yo, we're 1 for 4 on the people sending in their information for winners. You guys, when we call you out, send your info in, your address, your email. Send it on the IM board. We don't put it through until we take it down and we'll delete it. But yeah, send that info in and shake and bake. Oh, and the question is, who was the first person from New Jersey to qualify for the Classic? Where and what year?
Well, another great New Jersey angler question. And
where?
You got more to come on that question?
Who are they? Where and what year? What body of water and what year did it happen?
And now's the time, guys. We're going to go on break. Go over, subscribe to Bass University TV, and you too can win an FLW tournament and make it over to the elites. So go over and subscribe, 10 days free. Use the code TRYBU. Subscribe annually, and you get 2 months free. You'll be able to ask us questions. We've got great giveaways today, but we've got great promotions. Rapala VIP. We've got discounts on Poptical sunglasses. We're going to have great discounts on WeGo products. All this great stuff, all available to our subscribers only. So go over to bassu.tv and subscribe. It's only $2.88 a week. That is correct. I'll get that number right. All right, we'll be right back with more Bass University TV Live.
It really applies to everybody out here that wants to tournament fish and know that you're maximizing every minute, every cast. And it's basically a triangle. It's more than a theory. It's the deal. I mean, if you pay attention and you can turn the first slide. Or there we go. So the triangle's simple. You've got sight, sound, and scent. And a lot of times we're paying more attention to the sight and the sound of our lures and our surroundings, but we're forgetting how important scent is to fish. And so if you can basically make this triangle in every tournament situation, make sure you're maximizing it, you're going to have better results in the end. I can go back to events and in the past. It's funny because you know over 10, 12 years I fished the Bassmaster Elites now, and I can go back to my best events and recap them in my mind. I'm going, why was that tournament so much better than this other event? It's because I utilized all three of them. We get lazy. We forget to utilize the third, which is basically scent. Like the sound of you in the boat, your water slapping on the boat, that's not normal to them. If you're pulling into their environment and you're going to try out there and catch, the fish that they're doing their own thing, and you're stomping on your trolling motor, you're mashing down, you're letting go. All these things are really disturbing the fish. And I'm really conscious every time I go fishing. Minimize my trolling motor speed. If I'm kind of just power fishing down the bank, I like to keep it on like 3 or 4 and just continuously keep going. I might catch a couple fish in a little spot. I'll try to take a big wide turn and come back around. And that way I'm just not disturbing those fish. And you can see when you're going down the bank, if another guy's in front of you, how they're fishing, they may not be catching them. And a lot of it, I think, is not so much what they're throwing, it's the noise that they're making while they're fishing for those fish. All right, scent. Now this is kind of where the whole topic begins, because the first two, I mean, you've got your colors of your baits, you can go to Bass Pro and see everything there is, and most of it is visual and it's sound. But the scent, I know for a fact that I forget to put scent on a lot of things. And it's important. I mean, I remember like fishing as a kid for striped bass with a little tiny clam that's just sitting on the bottom and catching big old stripers. I don't really think they're seeing that great. I don't think they're, hearing it, but they're definitely smelling it and eating it. So yeah, I think we forget to put scent on our baits. A lot of plastic baits are pre-scented, so we don't really think about it. But if you start adding, this is kind of where this is going. All of our hard baits, all of our spinner baits, that's sound and that's sight. There's no scent until now. So going back to, I want to say it was maybe 2002, I was introduced to a scent called Mega Strike. You guys familiar with that scent? It's a petroleum gel. And I was fishing a tournament by myself at Folsom Lake. And I was throwing a jerkbait, and I was like, I'll put this on there because I'm letting it sit there. It's just something I thought of. I ended up winning that tournament by 6 pounds, caught my biggest spotted bass to this day, a 7-pounder in that tournament. The very next day, I went to Berryessa with a buddy, and I'm like, well, heck, it worked on that. I'm going to put on my lipless crankbait. Berryessa's shallow grass, flats, and we won by 5 pounds. So, I kind of played around with it, but then you put your bait back in your box, you got that gel on there, and it just kind of ruins everything in your box. So it was kind of like, well, if I'm on a bite, maybe I'll just do it for that event. Learning more about like the petroleum-based gels, the thing is, the scent's great for the first few applications, first few casts, but then the molecules actually get trapped in that petroleum and they can't release anymore. So now you just got goo that's going to get stuck on your baits, your line, and it's going to make a super nasty mess, even in your rod locker. I mean, it's good for, I usually, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to put my plastic bag and put all my plastic worms in and stuff like that, and then that way they got, for several casts, I got a good scent going on. And like I said, the Biffle juice now, when it comes to that kind of stuff, that's what I've been throwing. Tommy Biffle convinced me it's the best. But, and it works. Fish allure, this is a scientific breakthrough, I guess you could say, in fishing. And you guys are kind of hearing it first. Fish allure is a decal that you can put on your hard baits. And it's actually layered in a way that as it gets wet, it activates. And so now you've got a scent trail that'll go for a complete hour per decal. And we're actually releasing a whole scent line of my signature scents. But what it is, it's real fish amino acids, and it's applied through layers into this decal. And now you can add it to, and I'm going to show you here.
I was definitely
Welcome back to Bash University TV Live. I'm here with Adrian Avena. I got BTC and Eric the intern in studio in the back, and we just got some great instruction on what to do. Some real high percentage stuff, buzz baits, shaky heads, way to catch fish on a body of water you don't know very well, and a way to be consistent no matter where you are in the country. And we are back. We are out here in the frozen tundra. We were talking about cold weather.
And we have another winner.
We've got something going on back here, Ian?
Yeah, well, our most recent trivia question, we have a winner for that, Mike P. And the answer was our very own Pete, 1997 Bassmaster Classic at Logan Martin Lake.
Yes.
Man, you've been around a while. Jeez.
I was born in 96, too. Let's keep that in mind. I was 1 year old when that happened.
How old were you?
1.
1 year old.
Jeez.
I am an old dude, man.
That hurts, dude. That hurts so bad.
That's why I shave, because I'm Santa Claus if I don't. But yeah, that was back in what was Logan Martin? No, that was the Classic.
Yeah, 1997 Classic
Yeah,
at Logan
the
Martin.
Classic. I remember Dion Hibden won that, throwing a shaky head
Back then, it was a finesse worm.
on boat docks.
Yeah, I don't think they called it a shaky head then, did they?
It might not have been come along. Back in the shaky head, to me, came from the guys in Alabama, and like on places like Logan Martin, and we started seeing the guys, because we were always throwing the slider heads, and
Yeah.
we just called it slider fishing. And then
But
we
that's
started
fine.
hearing the ball head guys from Alabama were calling it shaky head fishing. I don't know what year that came around, but I probably was alive during the period when it did. But that was a long time ago. Congratulations, Dion. I hope you're doing well. I know I don't think Dion's fishing right now, but he is a classic champ as well as an FLW champ. But I brought a product, and we're going to be giving one of these away. Is a WeGo 66. It's a jump starting system. You gotta have it if you're an angler that fishes tournaments like Adrian and I do, or you're just going fishing and you want to make sure that you're going to get in safe. You want to look at getting one of these systems, and this is a WeGo 66. This is their most powerful jump starter. It weighs 2 pounds. It weighs 2 pounds, and this unit right here will jump start your outboard. It'll get you in safe, and it has so many great features. I use it. Me and my son play Pokemon Go all the time, and we charge our cell phones with it. It's got a cell phone charger there. It's got emergency lighting, and it's super simple. And I'm going to take it out and put it together here, but
It's honestly dummy proof.
It really, and I'm about to show you that right now. But out on tour, we run into this problem a lot, man, where our boats won't start. And you've been in that situation. You've helped people in that situation. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been in a few different situations just last year alone. None of them were particularly me, but a couple of times, I saw somebody at a boat ramp, and they had their truck hood up, and I knew they were trying to get their boat jump started, their truck jump started, and I went over to them, and one of them I remember was actually on Lake Okeechobee, and the guy had a diesel, and I had the jump starter 44, which is actually a model down from this one here. Retails for $150. And I had that one, and I went over to him. He says, "Man, you mind giving me a jump?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm here to give you a jump." And he says, "What do you mean?" I says, "I got this right here. It's a WeGo Jump Starter 44. He says, "Oh, that's not going to jump this truck." He said, "It's dead." And he went and turned his key, and it would only click, it was bad. So I hooked that up, and honestly, so I'm not lying here, this was the first time I've ever used it. So I'm like, well, maybe it's going to work. I wasn't really sure. I knew it was a big truck, and I knew it had the jump start capability to it, but whenever you try something new for the first time, you're always a little bit skeptical. Well, I hooked it up. He went right to his truck, hit his ignition, it fired right up, and I'm like, holy crap, it impressed me.
Yeah.
Then another time, I was out in the water, and I always used to carry jumper cables, and the problem is with jumper cables is you need one good battery to jump start your starting battery. And a lot of times we're out there and we're on a trolling motor all day long, and we may have everything dead. Our graphs are drawing our house battery, our trolling motors are drawing our other 3 batteries. And if you don't have a good battery to jump start with jumper cables, you're not going to get your motor started. And I've had instances where I didn't have enough juice out of any of my batteries. Now, I got the WeGo, I don't have to worry about it. And like I said, it's a small piece of equipment. You said it's only 2 pounds, and that's their biggest one. And the 44 will also jump start. 250 Pro XS is what I ran last year. It's pretty legit.
Yeah, it really is. And I've been in that situation, and I've been doing this a long time. As we just pointed out, I'm 100 years old, and before this type of system, we had the jump boxes, right? And I had a jump box that weighed about 50 pounds. It weighed about as much as a battery weighs.
Yeah.
And you got to haul that thing around with you. It's extra weight. It takes up a ton of space in your compartments. And I just remember a time, it was the Lake Champlain. We talked about winning on Lake Champlain, and this was me on I forget which day it was on the tournament, second or third day of the tournament. And I was fishing an area for an extended period of time. That's usually when it happens. When you put your trolling motor down, your graphs are running, your aerators are running, and you're drawing on that outboard the whole time, 4, 5, 6 hours. And I go to move, and boom, I'm dead. And what I did, I used my jump box, and I was able to barely get my motor. I'd run it down so hard that my jump box just barely would get the motor started, and it did. And I knew once it was started that that was it. I was not getting another jump out of it. And in tournaments, they changed the rule a little bit now.
Yeah, now they protect us a little bit.
But before, anytime your outboard was running, you had to have a kill switch attached. So what I did was I tied a 10-foot length of rope to my kill switch and tied it to my ankle so that I could go up and fish from the front of the boat, operate the trolling motor and fish while the outboard was running, because I had to keep my outboard running. I knew I was not going to get another start out of it. And I actually called one time while the outboard was running, which I thought was pretty cool. But having a WeGo charging system would have been amazing feature for me to have back then. I have it now. I carry it with me everywhere I go. My wife carries one with her in her car. It's super simple. You saw me hook up the jumper cables to it. You simply have an on button right here. That makes the unit hot. Hook it up, charge your system, and turn it off. It's super simple, super lightweight, outstanding emergency piece of equipment that everybody, whether you have a car, a boat, whatever you're operating, you need to have one of these systems. It's really intuitive. You charge it. These blue lights tell you how much charge you have on while it's charging, so you know when it's full, you know when it needs to be charged. It's a really, really great system. Highly recommend it. So go to WeGo and get yourself one of these systems. Or if you're a subscriber to Bass University TV, we're going to be sending you some great opportunities to purchase some WeGo products here in the very, very near future. So you definitely want to get one of these guys.
And real quick, just to touch on that, one of the coolest things to it is the Smarty clamps. I don't know if you guys can see this right here, but these clamps, they actually tell you whenever it's hooked up right and when it's hooked up wrong. You're going to get a green light when it's hooked up right, and a lot of times you're in an emergency situation, adrenaline's pumping, you're not thinking clearly, you go and you hook the positive to the negative to positive, you blow a breaker, and then all of a sudden now you're really screwed.
Yeah.
This here will actually protect you from those mishaps, and it's only going to jump whenever it's appropriate. And that's one other cool feature that they have, and all the units have that Smarty clamp feature to it. So it's just another tool that WeGo really thought out thoroughly and smart and all that. And I mean, it definitely allows us to use it a little bit easier.
Yep. We love WeGo products. Thank you guys. It's the official jump starter of the Bass University, and we're going to be giving away one of these units right here, the WeGo 66. We'll be giving that away here in just a little while with a great trivia question that Brian the Carpenter is going to ask, and the answer to the question is probably going to be Pete Gluzek.
That's probably right. That's good stuff.
But hey, we promised you some great stuff coming, and we've delivered. We got some more great stuff coming. We're going to be talking about the fish head spin, and this is a tool that works for clear water. It works for blue heron lakes, and it works for situations that are coming up on the Bassmaster Elite Tour, I suspect, down at Lake Martin and Lake Hartwell. Is we've got Rob Jordan, friend of mine, friend of the Bass University, and a guide down on Lake Lanier. I see him on Skype. Rob, I appreciate you taking the time Saturday morning to come be with us. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. How you doing? Trying to stay warm down here. It's been 20 degrees for a week. I feel like I'm up in New Jersey with y'all.
Are you able to fish? Is Lake Lanier froze?
No, the lake's not frozen, but most all of our ponds, I got a pond right here behind my house. It's been frozen over for a week. Back of the creeks are frozen, but you can still get out on the lake, and believe it or not, they're still biting pretty good.
Wow. Well, it sounds like it might be fish head spin time.
It is definitely fish head spin time. The last time I was out just a few days ago, I mean, we're catching them on it. It's always a staple bait down here. I mean, not only this time of year, but all year long down here on any of these herring lakes, Hartwell, Lanier, even lakes in Alabama, like you were just talking about, Martin, Smith Lake. But it's definitely, they're biting it right now, that's for sure. And I think it's going to be a big player at the Classic coming up.
Well, we introduced you earlier as this year's FLW Rookie of the Year. So we're super excited, man. You're going to be out on tour this year, man. Are you looking forward to what's heading your way?
Absolutely looking forward to it, man. It's an awesome schedule. I mean, from Florida all the way to lakes like here at home for at Lanier for me. Alabama, Smith Lake, Obviously going to be fishing even up north, catching big smallmouth. So it's got a lot of different types of fisheries on the schedule, man. I can't wait to get it started. Hopefully we get down to Florida and have some warmer weather.
Well, you know how it is. As soon as you go to Florida, we draw it down with us. I know I'm going to be down there at the end of the month, and it's probably going to be 20 degrees down there by the time I get down there. But, hey, man, we're here to talk about this bait. A lot of people don't even use it. They don't know about it very well. But it is won tournaments. It's won big, giant tournaments. You use it a lot. It's called the fish head spin. Do you have any there in front of you that you can hold up for us?
Yeah, absolutely I do. I've got one I just cut off my rod. I was using just the other day. Make sure you can see it right there.
Okay.
This, without a doubt, is like I said, I mean, it's something that we use all year long down here. We've always got a fish head tied on. You hear a lot about it this time of year when guys are fishing in the wintertime. Fish get down on the bottom, fishing ditches, timber, and stuff like that. It's also a very versatile bait, be fished throughout the whole entire year. There's been a lot of big tournaments won on it in the summertime. It can be fished deep and shallow. But it is a bait that a lot of guys have questions about. I would say, without a doubt, it is the number one bait that guide clients will come to me, and they want to learn how to fish it. They want to learn the ins and outs of it. There's not really a wrong way to fish it, but in each different scenario, there are some very specific things that you want to do with it. It makes or breaks the difference between getting bites or not getting bites at all with it. And kind of what I mean by that is that a lot of guys see it. They see the blade on the bottom of it. They think it's just a chunk and wind kind of bait, very similar to maybe like a spinner bait. But as we all know, fishing a spinner bait or anything like that, a lot of times you have to kind of feel your way along with it, maybe strike a piece of cover, tick off a stump, make the blades flash, things like that to get the strike. Very, very much the case with a fish head spin. Just starting this time of year with it, bottom contact is key down here where we're fishing at. If this bait is up off the bottom this time of year, we don't typically get nearly as many bites with it. A lot of guys this may confuse a lot of people. This time of year, I personally opt for like a medium heavy type jig rod with a fish head. I'm fishing it very similar to how I'll fish a jig. I do keep it moving constantly, but it is, digging into the rocks, hitting the bottom. So I'm making a really long cast, fishing it in deep water, anywhere from 25 to even out to 40 and 50 feet. So when I've got a long cast like that, got a lot of line out, I want a little bit heavier rod to pick up that line once I get that fish on. You've got to really be careful with a fish head, though. You don't want to rear back as soon as you feel a bite. You want to let the fish take it. That was probably the hardest part for me to learn years ago when I first started fishing a fish head. Every time I'd feel a tick, you want to jerk back on it. Let them get the bait, especially when you're fishing around spotted bass or any of the herring lakes. Fish, or when a fish head comes by these fish, most of the time they're never by themselves. There's always a small pack of fish there. They're going to follow it. Some of them are going to swat at it. They're going to pull on the tail, maybe even strike at the blade. You'll know when he's got it. When you feel steady pressure, reel into it and just kind of load up on it. Don't need to make a big hook set with it or anything like that. That to me is one of the most important parts of fishing a fish head, especially in the wintertime. Let them eat the bait. I cannot say that enough. I just you can't emphasize that enough. Let them eat it.
Well, Rob, let me interrupt you for a second, because Adrian and I were talking about that exact thing a little earlier, and Adrian was talking about the fish nipping at the blade and using a stinger hook on the blade. Is that something you use? I'd like to hear your comment on it, and then I'll let Adrian tell you what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having a little bit of trouble in the audio, but I believe you're talking about the blade hook. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, this one actually has got a blade hook on it, and guys use different versions of a blade hook. This one right here has got a really small drop shot hook on it. It fits right inside the cup of the blade. I don't know if you can see that there very well. Couple of reasons you want to use that blade hook. Now, when I'm fishing in the wintertime, this time of year, I don't typically use it as much. I'm making constant bottom contact with the fish head like we were just talking about. That extra blade is, it's going to get hung up more. Now, the reason I use the drop shot hook to get it turned where you can see it real well is that it fits right in the cup of the blade. I personally feel like I don't get hung up quite as much with it versus a straight shank, small worm hook. Either one's going to work, though. It's just what your personal preference is. Like I said, this one just fits in the cup of the blade. It's always worked well for me. But like I said, I typically use the blade hook more when I'm fishing around schooling fish, throwing it in open water. We're a lot more prone to get fish just to come up and strike at the blade from underneath. This time of year, of course, situations are different, but most of the time when you get a hold of one, when one gets a hold of it this time of year, he's got it pretty good. You've got him on the top hook here. But like I said, it really varies given the scenario you're fishing. If you're fishing in standing timber, you probably want to stay away from the blade hook. But if you're fishing on like a clean sandy bottom or just on a ledge, yeah, you could probably get away with it. So it's definitely something worth experimenting with. For guys that throw a fish head spin or want to try it out a lot, you're going to land a lot more fish with that blade hook. Something you may hear a lot of guys talk about, and I've certainly had this on guide trips down here. People throw it out there and you'll constantly hear him say, I just got a bite, I just got a bite, I just got a bite, but he's not getting it. And you'll if you see that, if you keep feeling those fish ticking at it, more often than not, they are hitting the blade. They're not always hitting the tail. They strike at that blade. So blade hook is definitely it's something that a lot of tournament guys do, but it is definitely a trick to throw in a fish head, and it's going to get you more bites and put more in the boat for you.
Adrian, we were talking about that, and it looks like you have the drop shot hook threaded right on the split ring. Is that the type of stinger hook that you use, Adrian?
Yeah, I'll use a drop shot hook. I do use that little straight shank, the one that you had mentioned. It gets hung up a little bit better. It just sits down on the blade a little bit more. But I think you kind of hit it on the head, though. I think it's just putting something there, because a lot of your bites, especially more towards in the summertime and schooling fish, whenever you are fishing that bait around suspended fish, where they are striking that bait from the bottom, coming up for it. I definitely think that's when it's more important. This time of year, like you said, when you're crawling it on the bottom and really banging the bottom, making a lot of noise down there, that's one more thing that's going to get you hung up. So there's definitely a pro and con to it. If you can get away with it, it's probably pretty smart to have one.
Well, Rob, you said that, it's all year bait, but it seems like this bait wins tournaments when the water temperature is cold. Is that what you found? You can catch them on at any time, or the cold season's the best time to get to know how to learn this bait?
I would definitely say it is one of the best times, but it is also equally effective in the heat of the summer. So I kind of feel like it is when it's most effective when those fish are in the coldest part of the winter and the hottest part of the summer, down here at least. There's a lot of tournaments won on it down here from, December to March time frame when those fish get in ditches around bait. No doubt about it, it is the most effective technique that you can throw in that scenario. Those fish down here, as it gets cold, the herring will get in the center of those ditches. First thing in the morning, they may be towards the back of the ditch, maybe in the 15 to 25, 30-foot range. And then as the morning progresses and the sun gets up, a lot of times those fish will pull out, maybe to the edge of the timberline. It can vary anywhere from 30 to 50 feet. And you can cover, that whole entire zone. You are fishing it slow, but you're reeling it steady. Like Adrian just said, you're constantly digging the bottom. You're hitting off anything, whether it be a rock pile, maybe even some brush in some scenarios. But it's a deadly technique. It catches a lot of big spots too. And it's also equally as effective on largemouth also this time of year.
It's a technique that everybody talks about, the herring lakes. Why do you guys have a theory, or do you have a theory, Rob, about why it works so well around the herring lakes?
I can't hear you very well. I heard you say something about the herring lakes.
Yeah, the fish head spin works well around herring lakes. Do you have a theory why that is?
Our fish, like I said, they group up in the ditches around herring. That's when you hear most about the fish head spin. So, the blade with the flash is, that's a lot right there in itself. Our fisheries are very clear, so that blade is going to get his attention from far away. one thing I think that is why it's very effective on herring lakes is that this bait tracks straight, very similar to a herring. It doesn't have a lot of kick, a lot of side-to-side wobble that we may throw, maybe for fishing some dirty water lakes. We're not looking for a ton of vibration, a ton of side-to-side action. This is a very straight, inline bait. A lot of guys are going to throw it like I've got this one rigged up right here with just a straight tail, soft plastic jerk bait. There's no tail kick at all there. It's going to track straight. It moves through the water just like a herring does. If you've ever seen a herring swim, it is a very quick, erratic, swimming action. It's not a wide side-to-side or anything like that. So that's why I feel it's so effective here. You can fish it in all different parts of the water column. If any of the guys that may have fished herring lakes before know one day that your fish may be down in 35, 40 feet, and then throughout the day they can vary, from the top to the bottom and anywhere in between. Our fish, it's very common for our fish here, our spotted bass, to suspend, and there's no better way to attack them than with this right here. One thing that's important, it kind of just came to mind talking about that. Counting the bait down and choosing the right weight is extremely important. Me personally, I throw a 3/8 and a half ounce the most. And different scenarios, I'm going to count it down further. This time of year, I'm going to let it go all the way down until it hits the bottom, obviously, and try to keep it there. But maybe if I'm fishing in the summertime over offshore brush, maybe that brush is in that 20-foot zone. Well, I don't want it to get all the way down into that brush, but I want it to be right up above it. I want to count it down to maybe an 8 count or a 10 count, with a half ounce head. That right there is extremely important because you're going to bring it right over the top of that pile and get those fish to come up at it. That's a scenario where the blade hook is extremely important. But that's a tip right there. You count it down. Experiment with it depending on what depth range you're fishing. And obviously what weight head you're using. But like I said, a 3/8 and a half are my number one. That's my favorite versions of a fish head. This time of year, I will go all the way up to like a 3/4 ounce. If I'm fishing in 30 to 40 foot and I want to keep it steady, bottom contact, a 3/4 ounce does have a bigger hook in it. So I typically will use like 12 to 15 pound fluorocarbon there to kind of beef it up a little bit. But yeah, it's that's definitely a counting it down. Like I said, that's a huge, very important part of throwing a fish head.
I know you're struggling hearing us audio wise, but we can hear you great. But I wanted to ask you about plastics. You talked about the soft plastic jerk bait. Can you give me the lowdown on other types of baits or what trailers and colors that you like to use on the fish head spin?
Well, I will say number one bait, and I throw this probably 80 to 90% of the time. This is a Z-Man diesel minnows. It's a 4-inch swim bait, paddle tail swim bait. A lot of guys like to use different versions of a 4-inch paddle tail. One thing I like about this one specifically is this doesn't have a real wide tail kick to it like some other swim baits do. This one right here has more of a, like I said, an inline, tight action.
Rob, can you hold that up just a little bit higher? There you go. Now we can see.
Sorry about that, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna turn it. It doesn't have a real wide tail. It has a real tight wiggling action to it. The bait, the size of the bait and the head just matches up perfectly. It was like they were made for each other. That's just a bait that I go to. I have a ton of confidence in it. Catch fish on it all year long. Down here, I just, that's my personal favorite bait for the fish head. This is in a smoky shad color, very standard shad color. I throw typically an albino head most of the time. Another bait that I throw on a lot, like I showed a second ago, is a straight tail, soft plastic jerk bait. This is a Z-Man Streaks here. Very popular bait down here. The guys like to throw it all time of year. Some guys, they don't even vary at all throughout the year. If they throw a fish head, it's got that right there on it. There are other scenarios where you can throw a smaller swim bait on it. This is something a little bit different here. This is a bait that Fish Head just came out with. This is called a hammer spin. It's going to be something that guys are going to. It's got a real tiny little blade on it. Don't know how well you can see that, but this is just got a little 3-inch swim bait. A lot of guys over the last few years, throwing the small swim baits on a jig head has become, very popular for fishing, clear water finesse fisheries. That's something right there that you can downsize it a little bit and throw a little bit smaller bait on it. But those, the small paddle tail and the straight tail, soft plastic jerkbait, those are my two favorites. Guys do throw grubs on it occasionally. It's kind of an old school trick, but guys still do throw that. But those two that's my 1-2 punch, no doubt.
Okay. Now, Adrian, we were talking before. He's got a lot of experience and done well with this bait out on tour. What are your bait choices?
Yeah, I don't know this thing. For me, it's pretty similar. When it comes down to the fluke style bait, that's definitely a no-brainer. That's a good one. And then also just any traditional 3-inch boot tail. I agree with you when it comes down to you don't want anything that's going to really have a lot of pivoting action. Say like a Berkeley hollow belly or a hollow belly swim bait. When you got a lot of that roll to it, that's not what you want. You want something that definitely is streamlined. It's not going to have a whole lot of action. The thing about it, especially this time of year, the fish don't move a whole lot. Everything's pretty dormant, especially herring. They are really tight. They're similar to a lot of saltwater stuff that I target, so I kind of have that parallel to it. But anything that's definitely going to be streamlined. So you don't want something that has an overpowering tail to it too. One of the biggest crenses right now is a Kitech swim bait that has a big poot tail on it. That's not something that you want to throw in this situation. You want to throw something that's going to be a little bit more subtle.
Excellent. Well, now that I've got you, smallmouth. I know, Rob, you were up fishing Lake Oneida with us on the opens. Adrian, I'll throw it to you. Is this a smallmouth bait?
Man, honestly, I've had more success on a standard ball head than I have on an underspin when it came down to smallmouth. Now, I've seen situations where it was better, but I'd say the majority of the time I'm standard ball head with a smaller swim bait. I feel like that's going to be a little bit better in that particular application. I definitely feel like when it comes down to spotted bass, though, you can't beat a fish head spin. A fish head spin will outperform a standard ball head 5-1. There's no doubt about it.
Wow.
Yep.
Something about that flash for sure. But, how about the IM board? What do we got?
Yeah, I kind of like this question from Alex because obviously this technique deals a lot with what bait fish you have in the lake. So Alex wants to know, if he's showing up to a place he's never been before, where can he go to best research what kind of bait fish are in the lake, what he's going to be dealing with? How does he know if he's showing up to a herring lake or not?
Wow, that's a really good question. Adrian, do you have an answer for that question?
One might say a winning question.
I Google and YouTube everything.
Yeah. Yep.
I got a buddy back home. I just started getting into construction a little bit. He said, "Stop calling me YouTube." So that's what I do. If I ever got a question, that's your best advice, man. Just go on to YouTube. Generally, if there's big spotted bass in a reservoir like that, there's normally herring typically.
That's right.
Them spots get big when they gorge on them herring. But definitely just get ahead and go on Google.
Well, that's good advice. I know
pump and Google.
I know there's a lot of Department of Environmental Resources sites which can offer you some information there, but a lot of the bait fish like the herring are expanding, like they're showing up in lakes like Lake Lanier. They didn't used to have blueback herring in it when I fished it 20 years ago, but they do now, and that's true with a lot of the lakes. So that's an ever-changing thing, and Google's a great place to find it. What else we got, E?
Here's another good one from Dave. Is there anything you look for on your graphs specifically when you're trying to fish a fish head spin, particularly shad lakes?
We'll throw that one to you, Rob. Is there anything on your graph that you see that says, man, this is fish head spin territory?
No.
Absolutely. I'll kind of throw out a couple of different scenarios there. Many times, down here, we have a ton of bait in the lake. We've been talking about herring as a primary bait source, but there is still a ton of thread fins in the lake and a lot of gizzard shad also. So a lot of times we'll get in a scenario where you've got all the different types of bait fish there. Many times you may see the bait fish, the groups of bait up high, and obviously if you see arches underneath it, that is a prime scenario to throw a fish head spin. Another thing, though, that you're going to see a lot this time of year when it's extremely cold, you're idling through these ditches, and our ditches here, some of them have standing timber in them, some of them are clean. You may see pods of bait as you're idling along, but a lot of times you're going to see those fish laying right against the bottom. And to me, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier when Adrian was talking about as well. Grinding that fish head on the bottom, making constant bottom contact. When I see those fish laying really tight to the bottom, that right there is when I'm reaching for a fish head immediately.
Now,
I know, just to add a quick thing on this. I mean, I know from experience, and I know Brian, he knows from experience this past fall striper fishing, because I took him for about a 120-mile boat ride and we didn't catch nothing. But no, so one thing that I do when it comes down to fish head fishing, and you're fishing a lot of them ditches and getting around them types of things. I remember, my first couple tournaments, I had one on Hartwell's my rookie year. I would literally, because that first couple hours is so crucial, really the first hour is so crucial. And I mean, if you're practicing for 3 days, you only got 3 hours to find it, because that first hour is that crucial. What I would do is I would literally run from pocket to pocket to pocket, and I would never even make a cast. And I would look for birds, or I'd look for surface activity. And I would either waypoint it and come back, or I would make a few casts. But a lot of them places I wouldn't even cast. A lot of times them birds, they'll tell you the story of what's happening in them pockets, because you need to try to cover as much water. I feel like that's our biggest weakness when it comes down to anglers going to a new body of water, is that we don't get to cover enough. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, those tournaments are won, or there's 5, 6, 7, 8, majority of the top 10 in one area. And it may be an area that you never even seen in practice because you didn't have time. So I feel like really using Mother Nature too, really following them birds around, running around, covering as many ditches, covering as much water as you can, and looking for that too, not just using your electronics.
That's
absolutely
great piece of advice. I comment on, I mean, anybody that ever goes fishing with me, we're watching the seagulls all day, and it doesn't matter what, whether we're up at Lake Oneida smallmouth fishing or the Great Lakes, or down on, fishing largemouth down on the Chesapeake. The birds will tell you they're not there to be social. They're there to eat. And one thing, and this is a great tip, and I just want to share it with guys, because some guys miss it. But a lot of when you see the birds dive bombing and they're feeding on that shad, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
There's something going on there. Everybody sees that. The thing that I want to recommend that you guys look for is birds that I call sit in the bait, where there may just be 3, 4, or 5 seagulls just sitting in the ditch or a pocket or on a flat. And what they do is they sit on top of that pot of bait and they wait for the fish to push them up. So they're not actively feeding, but they're actively telling you that there's some bait fish in that area. So,
and there's a good chance at some point in time it went down. They were feeding and they're just kind of hanging around waiting for it to happen again. A lot of times them fish, they blitz, so you're going to have times when they kind of fire, they come up and they school for a little bit and then they go back down. Mm-hmm. Them birds aren't sitting in that ditch for no reason.
You're darn right. They make a living by hunting. Yeah. And so definitely key on birds. Herons, loons. I don't know what it is about loons, but anytime there's a loon, there's bass around. But anyway, the one question that I had before we get back to some IMs is watercolor. This is a clear water technique, right, Rob?
Yeah, mostly it is, but there has been some times where it's been very effective in some off-color water. You hear so much, we talk about all these spotted bass, and it's a great, bait for them. But there has been times we have absolutely thrashed largemouth, catching them on a fish head, in some, I won't say muddy water, but definitely some stained water. Now, a lot of times, largemouth, they're going to sit right on the bottom too, just like the spots are this time of year. They might not get out anywhere as deep as the spots do, but they may be in that, 8 to 10 to 15 foot range. Still maybe switch to like a white in color, white, plastic trailer on it. Very effective. And it's also very effective swimming around, some stained water, maybe in the warmer months, fishing around docks, fishing around grass lines. That's something I think is probably one of the most overlooked parts of throwing a fish head, is that it is effective all year long. and you can throw it just about anywhere. I know guys catch them on Gunnersville with it. We catch them, that's fishing around grass. We catch them throwing it around boat docks, swimming it down the side of docks, bridge pylons. So, it doesn't always have to be clear. I wouldn't necessarily, like I said, I wouldn't throw it in the mud, but don't be afraid to throw it in some stained water, no doubt.
Talk to me specifically, like 2 foot of visibility, a foot of visibility. What's the cutoff?
Yeah, somewhere around that foot of visibility, I would say. I have caught them on, when they're on specific deals. You're not going to draw fish in from a long ways away. Obviously, when it's muddy, you got to be throwing it right there where they're at. So, I can think of scenarios where I've caught largemouth in some pretty dirty water when they're on an isolated rock pile, or if they're sitting up next to dock floats. We have a lot of suspended, floating docks here. They may be sitting right up against dock floats, and you can swim it right down the side of that. So that's something that's most people don't think of a fish head for, but it's a deadly technique.
So one more thing I want to add to this. So I have, just like everybody, I know Iconelli, he talks about all the time about having a panic box, having a box that, he'll go to if everything fails. For me, it's the same thing when it comes down to sight fishing. I got a box that I literally have, 20 different things that I'm going to make that fish bite, whether it's, I got to go through them all or whatever, One of the things that I actually have in my box that I like to throw a 1/4 ounce fish head spin with a 3-inch Berkeley chigger crawl on it, and I like flipping that on the bed. A lot of times that gets them really agitated. I don't know if it's that blade or what it is, but I'm telling you right now, I have pissed some fish off with that little thing.
No kidding.
Now, I wasn't going to say that, but
I
share it a little bit here.
Only here at the Bass U. I'll be using that technique at Lake Toho in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We'll be getting those big fish head spins. But Brian, I think I want to ask the trivia question that is going to win the WeGo right now. Do you want to pick the trivia question, or should I read one from my pages here?
Go ahead, man.
Okay.
You're so much more eloquent.
I'm so much more eloquent. Well, everybody knows that.
Yes, indeed.
All right, we're talking fish head spin. I'm gonna read the first question here, and this is the trivia question. This is the biggie that's gonna win the WeGo 66, guys. Woo. So listen up. Name the 2 lakes where the fish head was used to win the FLW Cup. The 2 lakes where the fish head spin was used to win the FLW Cup. And if you're not subscribed to Bass University TV, I want to invite you guys over there right now. Hurry up. You can win the WeGo if you hurry up, but try it for 10 days free at bassu.tv or 2 months free if you subscribe annually. We've got a lot of great stuff that's going to be coming your way for Bass University TV. We've got over 300 instructional videos, and we launch 2 new videos every single week. I suspect that you participated in some of these FLW Cups.
Yeah, I know. I know which 2 they are. They're actually pretty recent too. They're both within the last 7 years.
Don't give any hints. This question is easy enough as it is. Do we have a winner already?
I was just going to see if we want to do one more IM question on underspins.
By all means. Let's
Adam,
get
I want to give away that sun shirt. So let's
all right, let's do that now with this one. Adam had a good question. He asks if you guys do anything with the blade size when you're fishing this bait, specifically in current. So like if you're fishing the Susquehanna with it or something like that.
I got to jump in right there. That dude's a winner. That's a good ass question. Adrian's going to put his shirt on there, and Rob, the sun shirt, and Rob's also got some products from Fish Head Spin that we're going to
that was a good one.
Compile on that.
There definitely is. I'm going to let Rob jump in on this one, but there definitely are times when blade size really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't fish it a whole lot in current, down here, but we changed the blade size. This is actually one that I've got right here. It's got a downsized blade on it. This is something we do that it's not really talked about a whole lot, so this is a good tip for everybody. Downsizing the blade in the warmer months is something we do. Helps the bait come through the water a little bit faster. It's not quite as aggressive. Down here we have a lot of fishing pressure, in your warmer months, June, July, August. So it's not quite as much flash, a little more subtle. This is a type of scenario where I would typically add like a small drop shot hook to it. Another thing too, we're going back to talking about the blade adjustment and the hooks, the the blade hook is I don't like using a real big hook a lot of times when I'm fishing like this, because I don't want it to catch the plastic on there as it's making that rotation. So, but play with that. But this is something. This is a downsized blade. I'll show you what the other one, the difference between the two there. But this is definitely something that we do, and I can see scenarios where you might make the blade a little bit bigger if you were trying to fish it in some off-color water or maybe in some current. Might upsize the blade a size or two. So I'll let Adrian kind of jump in, and if he's got anything to add to it. But
yeah, that's great, because I remember Casey Ashley winning by upsizing the blade.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that, because that's what I was going to say. So I'm just like you. I throw the 3/8 and half ounce the majority of the time. The 1/4 ounce is actually a smaller blade. Comes with a smaller blade on it, and with you upsizing that blade, it allows you to slow that bait down even more. And the thing about early in the year like this, in the wintertime, in the late fall, early spring, you really want to reel that bait as slow as you can. I know you're talking about fishing it a lot like a jig, and I mean that's crawling it on the bottom. And that bigger blade allows you to reel it slower, because you have more resistance, more drag, because you still don't want to put that big boot tail on there to slow it down. So you need to have something else to enforce that bait to slow down, and that's by adjusting that blade size. So for me, I'm definitely a fan of upsizing that blade when it comes down to slowing that bait down. When it comes down to current, for me, I think you just gotta more so up the size than like the actual weight size of the fish head spin. So even though, like for me, how it works, 10 foot of water or less, I use a 1/4. If I'm fishing 10 to 20, I'll use a 3/8. If I'm fishing anything more than that, I'll use a half. That's kind of my breakdown. Now, of course, there's always going to be different circumstances, but for you, if you're fishing around current, I'd stay with the heavier sizes.
Gotcha. Blade sizes, you talked about upsize and downsize, and did you guys mention the actual size? Do you guys know the sizes?
I know that the half ounce is I believe it's a number 3 size blade. Another thing too, talking about blade adjustments, you can also change the color on the blades, and a lot of times down here, that can be a tremendous difference between catching them and not catching them at all. We add white blades. The one I just showed a second ago was a hammered blade, just gives it a little bit different look. So, you can take and tweak that however you like. But I think that's, what Adrian was talking about you throwing a heavier, heavier weight in current. I definitely think that's the case over putting too big of a blade on it. You have to be careful when you add too big of a blade. It'll cause the bait to roll a lot. And as you're reeling it, you have to really be careful with your retrieve speed to make sure that it stays tracking true. It doesn't roll over. So that's something that's it's worth spending a little bit of time with. Maybe when you're at the ramp, or if you've got a swimming pool close by. Obviously maybe not this time of year when everything's frozen over, but take and tweak with it and find that right size blade that works for that scenario you're going to be fishing it in.
Excellent. Well, I have a question for you, Rob. Have you, at this point, scheduled the Bass University live staff outing on Lake Lanier?
We can definitely set that up right now.
Can I get in on that?
Adrian wants in. And I know a lot of other people will want in. And Lake Lanier is one of the premier, if not the premier, spotted bass fisheries on the East Coast.
I like it because you can catch a striper.
Stripers, too.
Yeah, there's big stripers.
That's right. That's right.
Please come down and catch all of them you want.
Hey, if guys want to come down and learn the fish head spin with you, they want to come fish Lake Lanier and catch these giant spotted bass, let them know where they can find you on social, your website. Let them know how they can get in touch.
Yeah, my website is just robjordanfishing.com. And, of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Rob Jordan Fish. But, yeah, feel free to reach out to me through my website. I would love to set something up. I'm still going to be guiding a lot this year around the tour schedule. So, absolutely, if somebody wants to come down here and learn the fish head, there's no better place to do it than here.
Excellent. And we're giving away some fish. What are we giving away, Rob, from Fish Head Spin?
We've got a variety of different things. I've actually got some stuff sitting right here in front of me. This is I actually haven't talked about this one yet, but this is the make sure I grab the right pack. The Fish Head stand-up. See it right there. It's actually got it's actually a pretty neat version of a fish head. The wire on it, make sure you can see it right there. The wire on it keeps the blade a little bit further away from the head. Me personally, that's the one that I like to add a blade hook to the most. It keeps the blade a little bit further away from the bait. It keeps the blade hook from getting snagged in the plastic. But I'm going to give away 3 packs of these. So if anybody's got a good question, that might be a first good giveaway from Fish Head for somebody.
Well, we got any IMs on the board right now, E? Do we have a winner yet? Well, let's take a moment and announce the winner of the WeGo 66.
All right, so the first one to get it was David. Again, he's a double winner tonight, and the answer was 2010 and 2011 Lake Lanier and Lake Ouachita.
Excellent. Congratulations, David. Winner of the WeGo 66. Yay! Well done. Well done. I'm surprised we haven't heard from Eric G. Tonight.
Not one peep from Eric G today.
Eric G, man, he's won something every single show.
You guys were hyping him up.
I know. He must have a family obligation today. He can't be with us for some reason. But anyway, congratulations on winning the WeGo 66, and we've got a lot more stuff to give away. Fish Head Spins. Bring on your IM questions, comments, anything you want to know from Adrian and me about the Bassmaster Elites, about the FLW Tour coming up for Rob, Lake Lanier. All you guys answer or ask questions on IM board. If you haven't subscribed to Bass University TV, do it. We're going to help you raise your bass fishing IQ. We've got some amazing content that's coming in 2018. We've got the best speakers in the world teaching about what they're really good at. And you can watch Bass University on your computer. You can watch it on your smartphone, on your iPad, anywhere. A lot of guys watch it when they're out in the boat. You're trying to learn how to fish a fish head spin. You can pull up Rob and listen to him tell you exactly how to do it on Bass University TV. So go ahead over there and subscribe. You can try it right now, 10 days free, and go check that out. But, Rob, what is the best time to go down to Lake Lanier if they want to come and fish with you? Is it this time of year? Is it when we get towards the spring? What do you recommend?
I would say more often than not, the biggest fish that we catch down here on Lanier are going to be between now and the 1st of March. Your pre-spawn fish. To me, that's when the spotted bass are the biggest. We've catch a lot of really big fish this time of year, and it can be a great time of year for numbers also. But no doubt, just like any other fishery in the Southeast, that April-May time frame is just hard to beat. I mean, there's so many different techniques going on. You can catch them on a topwater, you can catch them on a fish head, you can catch them on a worm, a jig, or anything in between. So really, any time in the spring, I would say is going to be the best time. Obviously Lanier is really popular for topwater fishing too throughout the summer. But hey, you really can't go wrong any time of year down here. You can even catch them in the heat of the summer also. You just got to break out your spinning rod a lot more often.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to ask another trivia question, E. So we'll give away some of the fish head spins for the answer to this question, which we alluded to just a moment ago, is what bait and color did Casey Ashley what underspin did he use to win the 2015 Classic? What bait and color did he put on his fish head spin?
That is correct.
Answer that question, and we'll be giving you a whole gift pack from Rob on the fish head spin. We have another question that was coming for our from our instant messaging, which is, who was the first New Jersey angler and only angler to win the Bassmaster Rookie of the Year title, and what year?
Wow, doubling them up.
And that one was Pete Gluzak, by the way. We're going to give the answer to that question.
You said that with a little bit of excitement,
yeah,
so I kind of figured it was Pete.
Because we're planning on Rob being Rookie of the Year on the FLW Tour. I just wanted to talk Rookie of the Year title, and I was Rookie of the Year in my rookie season in 1997, but I did not get the title. Do you know why?
What happened?
I am so old that they didn't have a Rookie of the Year title back then.
Oh, shoot.
But,
oh, man. I finished second both years on the FLW Tour and the Elite Series. Second.
Is that right?
Second. Yeah, I'm going to be Aaron Martins of second place.
Well, Aaron broke out and just started storming with the wind, so I think
yes,
that's
he did.
potentially going to come for you here real soon. But I remember this about my rookie season. Is the third tournament of the season took place on Lake Lanier, and it was amazing. I fished with a guy. Man, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he's a really strong angler down there. We were fishing jigs, and we were swimming them through the standing timber. And it was, for me coming from these ponds in New Jersey.
Like,
what's this? What in the heck are we doing? We're sitting in 50 feet of water, fishing a treetop that's 20 feet down, and I'm trying to feel the jig as it comes through the branches, and I remember we both caught about 12 pounds of bass that day, and we smashed them. And that was a giant stringer on Lake Lanier. Now, tell us about it, Rob. It's a lot different now.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, a lot of your local events, team events, I mean, it's going to take 16, 17 pounds to get in the money. Spotted bass bags around 20 to even low 20s, 22, 23 are not uncommon at all. There's been times down here we've had 18 pounds and not even got in the money. So the spots have gotten a lot bigger. There's times, of course, like any other lake, where it's going to be tough, where 12 to 14 pounds is a good catch at certain times of year, especially in late summer and early fall. It's going to be tough anywhere in the South. But yeah, they have grown tremendously. A 3.5 pound spot is it's a good one, but they're not uncommon at all. A lot of fish in that 4 to 5 pound class.
That's awesome to catch a 3 to 4 pound spot. Do you want to admit to putting the blueback herring in the lake? Take responsibility for that?
That might have been a little bit before my time. I mean, they really came on strong in the last 10 years or so, and some prior to that. But yes, it has changed tremendously. Even from when I was young fishing up here, the fish seemed to target a lot more threadfin back when I was a lot younger fishing. Now it's they want to be around herring, no doubt. I mean, a lot of times that's where you're going to find the biggest spots. When you find bluebacks, that's where the biggest spots are going to be, no doubt. Excellent.
Do we have a winner yet, E?
First
we have
one,
a winner.
The first one to get it right, and it was a Zoom Superfluke Jr. in white pearl, and it's going to be Alex H. was the first one to get it correct.
Alex H.
Yes.
Congratulations, Alex. You're going to win yourself a whole bunch of fish head spin stuff, and I know you're embarking out on the FLW Tour this year. You've looked at the tournament schedule. What are you most excited about?
Man, I'm obviously excited about fishing here, but I'm definitely excited about getting down to Florida. Something a lot of people don't know about me is I went to college down in South Georgia and lived down there for 4 years. And I used to fish some Florida lakes, fish some South Georgia lakes. I love fishing grass. I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but I'm very much looking forward to getting down to Florida and getting the season kicked off on the right foot. So,
excellent. When does the tour come to Lake Lanier? What month?
It's first week of March. So the type of stuff that we're talking about here could definitely be a player.
On fire.
Oh, that's awesome. We've got a ringer in the bunch for all of you all you guys that are playing the FLW Fantasy Fishing. I think you might want to put Rob on your list for the Lake Lanier tournament. Though, do we have any more IM before we let Rob go?
Yeah, we're deep in trivia now.
We're deep in trivia. The trivia guys have blown up our board, so we're going to go back. We're going to figure a way out to give gifts and prizes away to all the guys that ask questions here tonight, and we certainly appreciate it, Rob, and I appreciate your time. And like I said, I'll have JK send you over some possible dates for us to come down and go fish Lake Lanier with you. But,
absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we certainly do. We wish you the best out on tour this year. And, we'll catch up with you real soon, buddy. Good luck down there at Lake Lanier, and good luck out on tour.
Absolutely. Same to y'all. Take care, guys.
Use guys.
Use guys.
Yeah.
See you, Rob.
Well, that was awesome. Guys, I learned a lot about the fish head spin. It's a tool it's a weapon that I've got to put in my arsenal. And like we said, this very well could be a factor in the first Bassmaster Elite on Lake Martin and the Bassmaster Classic. And another trivia question is, who was the only New Jersey angler to win on Lake Martin back in 1999 in the Enterganis Peak Lusick? We've got a lot more of those trivia questions.
A lot more Pete trivia. You're ridiculous, Pete.
But we'll keep those coming. But what are you looking forward to, Adrian, this year?
Oh man, I don't know. I got all worked up. What was it? 2 years ago when the elites were coming to the Potomac River, and I blanked one day. I mean, that's something I've never done before, and especially to do it on your home water, it kind of threw a wrench in everything. So now I don't get too worked up on it, man. I mean, it's hard not to get excited to come to the Chesapeake Bay because it is only an hour and 20 minutes from the house.
I sure hope it fishes better. I mean, it should. You're going to be there in July versus August when you were there previously.
Yeah, and that's a big swing wherever you go, But I mean, it's still honestly, it's still a tricky time of year. I mean, it's not going to be when the place shines. I mean, it's still going to be a grinder event. But I just, I agree. I hope it is going to be better. And I mean, I just saw it was just released for going out of a new place. It's going to be a little further south. So that's going to be kind of cool too.
I saw the controversy. Where are you taking off out of?
Yeah, so I guess we're going out. We're going out down south. I forget the name of the actual ramp, but it's in the Middle River, I believe.
The Middle River? Is it Dundee State? No, that's Gunpowder. You're going to be going down out of the Middle River. I don't know. Oh, well, I know the launcher. I know the state park in the back there. Well, boy, that'll change things up.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I've honestly never put in a whole lot of time on that south part of that river. So, I mean, it may be something I might have to explore.
Yeah, well, that part of the river is no good. You can't win there. If anybody would have asked me going into the last Derby, I would have told them that. It's exactly where Aaron Martin's won the tournament. But, yeah, that'll be that's interesting. That's very interesting because now the Northeast River is now where a lot of guys might not run to. It'll spread the field out. Plus, it's going to be a great tournament. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to kind of suck a little bit. Yeah.
Well, for us, it kind of does. But, you think about the city of Baltimore. You're right.
Coming from the south.
Yeah, you're right there. Washington, D.C., you're right there. From that perspective, it's really good. What do you got, E?
Man, who was that? All right, so Dave Paul, you get that. I got one more, and that was it. So the $25 Tackle Direct gift card goes to him. South Dakota, man. So I went out there and I spent 2 days out there, and I drove around it a little bit. It's massive. The one unique thing is there's not many gas stations on that place, so you really have to just strategically make your runs and really see your limits and all that stuff, because there's some good water that looks to me that's really far. What I like about it is I'm a big smallmouth guy. I love throwing light line, I love throwing a swim bait, I love drop shot, and I love everything about smallmouth. I think it's going to be fun. I went out there, and I mean, it was the worst conditions. It was blowing 30 miles an hour. It was 40 degrees out, and I mean, it was rough. But every time I stopped my boat, I caught smallmouth. So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be interesting. Every time the Elite Series or any big tournament organization goes to a new body of water, I always like it because it's always an X factor. It's going to be one of them things where there's not a whole lot of information available. So it's going to be one of them things where we have to really, when we get there, we have to utilize everything that we've learned from these guys from the Bass University and apply it that week on the water. And I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun event.
Excellent. That's a great question. I look forward to watching that tournament. And, I appreciate you giving me this note, Brian, because something really significant is happening in the world of fishing right now. The FLW tournament trail's down on Lake Okeechobee, and we had a boating accident. I read some brief details on it. The boat capsized. The boater was found late. The co-angler is still missing. Is that right, Brian?
It's the last I seen. I don't know if anybody's got any updated information on that, but that was as of this morning. So it seemed like he was still missing.
Well, thoughts and prayers go out. I know they canceled the day of tournament fishing so that they could search
days 2 and 3.
FLW too. That was solid.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to him and his family. Man, I hope that he's clinging to a grass clump out there right now, waiting to be rescued. Lake Okeechobee it's big. It's 25 miles across. When that wind blows, it gets ferocious. I've been out there in it. amongst it, and it's so flat sometimes, and there's rocky areas where the wave troughs, you can bash your lower unit and get yourself in deep trouble out there sometimes. So it, like all big waters, you got to give it a lot of respect, and just thoughts and prayers, and we hope things turn out well. We'll all be watching, and just all the best to him and his family down there at Lake Okeechobee. And appreciate the efforts that the FLW crew is putting forth out there to try to find him. And we'll be going on, I guess we'll be going on the internet here to see if we can get an update here shortly. But thank you everybody for being here with Bass University Live. Brian, is there any undone business? Yeah. Check the replay out, Seth. I think that happened about 15 or 20 minutes ago. We talked about that exact thing. Eel Pout Snout chiming in. Hope you found your rain gear, buddy. The missing in action. But anyway, thank you, Adrian, for being here with us, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Hey, guys want to follow you on social media. They want to see your trek out there on the Bassmaster Elite Tour. Follow your 150 miles of no fish catching striper action out on the ocean. How can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, so pretty much it's Adrian Avena Fishing on both Instagram and Facebook, and then just adrianavena.com. And if you guys, again, just like Rob said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. It's going to be a fun season. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for your support and also everybody that follows me.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Tremendous insight and information, especially for guys that are struggling to be consistent catching fish. I appreciate that. Thank you, BTC. Thank you, E, for cutting your frozen tundra fishing trip short for us so you could be here with us.
Only for you guys, Pete. Only for you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you subscribers. We're gonna ship all these great gifts out to you. Appreciate all your wonderful questions. If you haven't yet subscribed and you watch this show, that we're going to be delivering this for you every single month. There's lots more opportunities for you to win great prizes with great new guests. Can we announce our co-host of the next show?
Sure, let's put the heat on them.
Let's put the heat on them. We may or may not have, we hope we do.
We should have.
The great Jay Kumar
Yep.
will be sitting in the co-host seat in our February show, and we'll be announcing dates and times real soon for that. And look forward to having Jay back in the studio. Good friend of mine and good friend of the Bass University. Appreciate that. Looking forward to it. Thank you again for subscribing. Go to bassu.tv to subscribe. 10 days free. Come on, check it out, guys. Join the party. Raise your bass fishing IQ. Thank you, everybody. Have a happy New Year. Stay warm. Good fishing. Good luck getting through cabin fever. We'll see you guys next time.
Yep.